The only one.
I'm here.
Are you here? Okay.
We're gonna start now. Hello, Ariel, Ben.
Hello, how are you? Can you hear us?
I'm doing well, very much. I'm doing well. Thank you very much. Yes.
Great.
On my thesis, I have to submit an initial paper at the end of January. So, working on sleep like day and night, and other than that, studying Torah when I can enjoy it, and that's it. How are you guys doing over there in Guatemala, Colombia, right?
In Colombia, yes.
We're doing a lot better now.
Okay.
We had a couple of weeks of really rough time, but we're out in the mountains now, and oh man, it's so beautiful. It's just absolutely stunning. I'll send you some pictures on your WhatsApp so you can see it. And,
absolutely.
Please do.
Yeah.
Please
Quiet.
do. Really? You guys found yourself a nice little out there permanently or semi-permanent at least?
Well,
yeah.
We're not here. We're just looking around at the moment, still trying to find somewhere where we want to stay. But this is certainly the last place we looked at was freezing cold. But this place is just, oh man, it's perfect. The Mandarin, or I mean, it's kind of like Spain. It's got everything.
Gorgeous mountains. Yeah.
Gorgeous mountains.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
Grow anything that you want. You take a leek and a pea will grow. It's just incredible.
Oops. I think you guys are either you or I are not. I'm not hearing you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Let's see if I need to turn up the volume a little bit here.
I think it's the internet, and it may be my connection because my internet here is some little bit, not so good. But I don't know if it's your internet connection or my internet connection.
It could easily be this one where it's been in and out. The music has been cutting in and out, so I don't know. Can you hear me now?
Do you mind? Like I said, yeah. Now I hear you guys perfectly. Again, it might be mine here because I don't know. Also, the internet is sketchy here as well. But anyway, you guys are safe and sound. You're happy where you are.
Yeah.
Up in the mountains, and so it was the right in retro.
Great.
Hello? Yeah, hello.
Hello.
I don't know.
Us?
Hear you guys.
We can hear you
On
pretty
and
good.
off.
Yeah.
Okay. You guys on and off, so I know whose it is. All right. So maybe we'll just come then. And so we should start, Ariella and Ben. Sorry, you did most of the research. I would love to hear later what you came up with regarding the 430 years of Exodus.
Yeah, I read what you put up, and it makes sense that why would you something that's stated so clearly in the Torah, 430 years. How can it be that you can argue that away by a few? These ages of these different people clearly were not placed in there. So how do you know? I mean, I've always had a problem with Jochebed being over 200 years old when she gave birth to Moses, because Sarah was 90 and it was a miracle. So
right. Well, then we have, wait just one second here.
oh dear, it's cutting.
Oh no.
Rashi. Okay. Can you guys hear?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so I think the way we have to approach the problem is backwards. Okay, because we know exactly when the count ends, right? We know when the count ends.
Right.
When the Israelites leave Egypt, then 400. That's where the end of the 30-year count. So work backwards wherever that 130 years before ends up where the count starts. It's a simple math, right?
Right.
Unless you want to say it's meant somehow figurative, that doesn't make sense. If they said something like 400 years or 700 years number, then maybe it could be understood figuratively. But a number like 4 has no figurative significance. I mean, there are some in the Torah with figurative significance, 7 and 7. Some commentators say that, for instance, some changed Jacob's salary 10 times. 10 times. The 10 is a figurative, it's a round figurative expression of times. Or when it says that with I can't remember the exact phrase, but anyone who punishes Cain shall be punished sevenfold, right? I mean, that's not an exact number. That's
Right.
There are some which could be figurative extents, but 130 is not one of them. So it sounds exact enough. Try to work backwards and figure out, exactly where the beginning of that 430-year count is, because we know exactly where it's not a simple problem because because a lot of commentators have a stab at it. A lot of scholars, so-called, have taken a stab at it. So it's not exactly a simple problem. It is kind of confusing. I started playing with it. Show you what I did, which was share the screen differently.
Mm-hmm.
It was no endeavor here. I mean, it was no groundbreaking work that I did, but I did with it a little bit, and let me just show you what I came up with. So
great, interesting.
So this is what I came up with. You can see the screen right now.
Not yet.
Again,
No, it's not showing yet.
Stuff. Oh, okay. Hold on a second.
Take a second to get here, maybe. Who knows?
Now, it should be showing now.
There we go.
Yep.
All right, here we go.
Yeah. So here we go. So Levi in Exodus, Levi in Exodus 6:16 says he lived for 37 years. His son Kohat lived for 103 years. Amram, the son of Kohat, and Moshe lived for 37 years. And then it says in Exodus 7, Moshe was 80 years old. Aaron was old when they saw Pharaoh. Okay? So these numbers together. If you add all of these numbers together, then you come up with 480, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't. That I'm going to add another line here. If it doesn't, a lot of wiggle. Since 480 minus 430 equals 50. We basically got 50. So we want to take that literally. We've got 50 all of that in all. So if Kohat was born, which is a ridiculous assumption, Kohat was born last year of Levi's life, and Amram was born of Kohat's life, and Moshe was born in the last of Amram's life, then that would be add up to 487 years. And so if we take 50 of over, right, it's kind of ridiculous. Let's say 57 by, we have 3 generations, 20 years. So if each son was 20 years, then we can maybe get down to 430,
Oh, wow. Okay.
So,
that works, doesn't it? Okay.
Maybe, but I don't think, actually, what I'm saying is I don't think it does work because you have to make a lot of assumptions, right?
Right.
So
Yep.
the assumption you would have to make is that the overlaps between these lives, actually, let's see, it overlaps between 1, 2, really 3 generations. You only have 57 years to overlap these generations, right?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And that's not a lot. So 57 divided by 318.
Almost
So
60.
for this, yeah. It makes sense. It would have to be the case that, well, let's see, that each son was born 18 years before his father died. But even that doesn't make sense. We assume that Levi went down to when he was 0 years old, which is not the case.
Which
right?
doesn't work because Levi was quite a bit older than Joseph, and Joseph was already down there.
Right. So if you say that, let's say the count start, I don't know, let's say we went down to Egypt. Let's kind of guess maybe. Then Yosef, we know, was 17 years old. It says explicitly he was 17 when he was captured by the Ishmaelites and brought down to Egypt. Levi was significantly older than him, right? Because Levi was born back in oh no, they were all born back in Haran. But Levi was older than him, so Levi was, I don't know, probably, let's say more, but let's just say 10 years. That means that Levi was 26 years, and they have to add another 26. I'm just, you have another 10, another 10 years in there. So it doesn't. So I think there are other ways to look at it. We have the incident where it's Abraham to Egypt, right? Because of the famine. That's where he got in trouble with no, now I'm getting, hold on a second. Let me just find it for a second. It had to be Genesis.
When
Abraham
Abraham
Google
went
it.
to Egypt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's going to be around Genesis, let's see, 15 probably here somewhere. This is the Brit Ben Abitarim. This is where he said, go back here, first of all, in the Bitarim, the covenant of split parts, it is chapter 15, 13. ויאמר לאברהם, תדע גר יהיה זרעך להם עבדו 400 שנה. So here 400 years. In chapter 13, but that we could say that's around, it off from 30. But it says here also that your descendants, well, let's listen to this. Your descendants, your descendants will be sojourners in a land that's not theirs. And they will enslave them and oppress them for 400 years. So it's not talking about Abraham himself, unless you could say descendants would include, the Torah is not always, like a scientific document. It could use things poetically, and numbers can be counted slightly differently by the Torah. But okay, let's say it starts with Abraham going down to Egypt, right? So where does Abraham go down to Egypt? I think it's.
But it says that his descendants, and Abraham wouldn't be one of his descendants. So if it's his descendants were going to be oppressed for 430
Correct.
years, it wouldn't include Abraham.
Yes, I agree with you, except for one thing. The Torah doesn't see. My personal opinion is that we often, including myself, many times, we overlay kind of English Western thinking on the Torah. So when it says descendants, we take that as if it's like a literal scientific statement. Okay, but the Torah is much more, biblical Hebrew is much more, I would say, flexible and poetic, and it may include him, even though it doesn't say it. Yeah, allegorical. It may include him, even though it doesn't say it explicitly. And I think one of the proofs of that is that at the end of Genesis, if I just turn to that for a second, and that's going to be in Genesis. Let's see. Oh, I can figure out exactly where it is. So it's Jacob. So that's going to be in. Oops. 1 second. What? I thought that was the beast. Hold on a second. Exodus. Genesis 46. So we look at Genesis 46, for instance. And then it says, for instance, it says, Ele Shemot Bnei Yisrael Haba'im Mitzrayim Yaakov Ubanav Bechor Yaakov Reuven. So these are the names of the children of Israel who came down to Egypt. Yaakov ubanav bechor Yaakov Reuven, and then it says there's 70 altogether. But the 70 count may also include Jacob himself. So even though it says the children of Israel, it also may be including Jacob himself. So that's an example of how the Torah, doesn't always, say exactly what it means in a kind of linear Western sense. I don't think that's actually a very good example because I'm not sure it does include him, but it's just to give a sense of it.
It's certainly,
but
certainly right in what you're saying, though. Just the Hebrew itself, even in modern Hebrew, you just cannot. What's the word I'm looking for? You cannot direct translate Hebrew into English. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, and it's not even a matter of tradition. It's more a matter of, it's more a matter of action. I mean, you have to think of the whole thing is, Hebrews have it's a whole different state of mind, really, know, and
it really is
up in a Western state of mind, and we have to somehow transform ourselves into thinking in an ancient Israelite state of mind, and it's not always very easy. So, yeah, right, sure.
Could there be anything wrong with the way the years are figured? I'm saying the 360.
I don't think so because the very
365 day year.
So, for instance, if we go back to, sorry, again, Ariella.
Yeah,
I can hear you.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I didn't hear you guys.
I just said if there was any possibility that the years were determined differently than we are today.
For instance, the Gregorian calendar.
I don't.
The problem is, they use the same year measurement for the ages of the patriarchs.
I don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if let's say hypothetically speaking, a year was only 5 of our current months. So then the 430 years would be 430 of those years.
Of those years, yeah.
It would make a difference. Yeah, it's kind of like to take an example from science. Einstein what do you call it? Time dilation. If it doesn't matter if you're moving really fast, then if someone else is looking at you, it looks like you're moving very slow, but in your own spaceship, then you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. A second would still be 1 second. Same thing here. If a year to half of the years there are contracted to half a year, so it kind of, it's all the same frame of reference. So I don't think that would make a difference. But I think on top of that, it's clear that in the Torah a year is a year because it's based on a lot of times agricultural stuff, right?
Yeah.
The agricultural things agricultural phenomena are running yearly, more or less. Anywho,
Right, okay.
So that's that. So yeah, I don't know. It requires a lot of thought and a lot of study, obviously. And let me know what you figure out, Ariella. I think my personal the best way to go is point.
I've had this question for some time about when it says it was this Aaron and Moshe. Why is it saying that? Is it possible that there was another generation that was not somehow counted for? Because it says clearly it was this Moshe and Aaron who delivered the children of Israel, more or less. It's maybe I should look it up.
And it's very specific.
Yeah.
So was there another generation?
Yeah.
That had
that's in maybe I I think that no, I think that's what it means. I think again that's let's find it here for. That's after the genealogy. No, it's way after this. Most staff, Egypt, and it's going to be the next chapter. No, next one. You talk about here. 1 second. Here, chapter 6:26. Right? I think that's what you're talking about.
Uh-huh.
So, again, if we take the Hebrew liberty, it says, this is, these are the Aaron and Moshe, this or that, it is Moshe, who told them, Israel may Eretz Mitzrayim, out of the land of Israel, Egypt. I think it doesn't an export for this, or it's not emphasizing best. It's just saying is that, you know, so it's I think a poor this, it was Aaron, it really is who are, it is Aaron and Moshe, it is these Aaron and Moshe. Maybe I guess it's not pointing out this, it's just these
the internet is pretty sure it's internet.
of Moshe.
Want me to open the window?
I don't think it's
Genealogies.
I think it's his.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, you're breaking up badly. I don't know.
Yeah, it might be my internet, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And that's
No,
just there's very little to do about it. I think one.
Oh.
Turning it off.
I think maybe if I turn off the camera, maybe it'll be better.
That is a little better.
Yeah,
I'll just leave my voice on. That might be better.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because then it doesn't have to transmit the video. Yeah, so you don't need to see my as they say. I'm gonna say that this here is kind of a summary sentence, because we took a break. We pick up the story here, so just picking it'll kind of begin topics, begin and topics. It'll just kind of summary sentence, and that's all that is here. So I think that, so this is the Moshe and Aaron, means that there might have been another Moshe and Aaron. I think that's real, to be honest.
Okay.
Hello?
Hello,
Yep,
yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so so that's that. Any rate, this whole issue of 430 years is it's one could do a PhD thesis on it, and I'm sure people have done PhD theses on it.
Yeah.
It is it requires a lot of thought, and the proof is that you look at different commentators and they'll all say different things. For instance, if we look at Mr. Reed, who is useless, but on Exodus 12, so 430 years. No. Where's it again?
With that.
We'll turn that thing.
1240. So Exodus 1240. Excuse me.
This is 1240.
It says it, ומשה בני ישראל אשר ישבו במצרים 30 שנה ו400 שנה. Oops.
Okay.
I guess he's going to put it up.
Yeah. So that's Exodus 12, verse 40. So we look over at Rashi on Exodus for a couple of giggles. See what we got. I think.
Here we go.
There.
$40.
1240.
So I think you go the English here. So it says 400 years. Although from Isaac until now, I don't know where he gets that from. And we must reckon that event for only from the time when Abraham offspring from Sarah, the prophecy, Genesis 15:13, offspring shall be a stranger, okay, taking that as well, be fulfilled. And there had been 30 years since the covenant part between the parts until the birth of Isaac, which I don't think he gets that from anywhere, but just make it up. It is impossible to say that this means there were 430 years in the land of Egypt alone. God was one of those who came into Egypt with Jacob, Genesis 6:11. Go and reckon all his years and all the years of Amram, son, all 80 years of Moses. The latter son, you will not find that they totaled to so. And you must Kohat had ordered many years before he went down to Egypt, and that many years in the years of his father's Kohat, and that many of the 80 years of Moses in the years of his father, so that you see that you will find 400 years time of Israel's coming into Egypt and Exodus. You're compelled to admit, even though unwillingly, that the other settlements which the patriarchs make in lands other than Egypt come also under the sojourning as a stranger, including also at Hebron. Sure, I agree with that, even though it was in Canaan itself, because it is said, Genesis 35:27, Hebron, Isaac and Isaac, Abraham and Isaac's son. It says, Exodus land, Canaan, the land of the where they sojourn, must necessarily say that the prophecy, thy offspring shall be strangers for 400 years, began only when he had offspring, and only if you reckon the 400 years from the birth of Isaac, you will find from the time they came into Egypt until they left, and you alluded to in Genesis 15:13. It's one of the passages which they all for King Ptolemy from Genesis 15:13. That's again Brit ben Abitarim.
Oh, to for King Ptolemy.
13.
1513.
No, it's just 4. So I think he's saying, I don't know where they get this from, but oops. What he's saying there is that somehow this is one of the passages where they alter for King Ptolemy. Well, we could chase that down, but I don't know if it's worth it. Here, it's mentioned in Megillah 9a. I guess we could chase it down for 1 second.
So how old was Joseph when Yaakov came down to Egypt? Was he in Egypt 20 years before they came down?
I did a rough calculation. So it says that Joseph was old, taken down to Egypt, and then, if I remember, 7. And then it says that he was. Oh, I'm trying to remember now. It says that he was. I think it says jail for. I think it was 12 years or 13 years.
Yeah.
And then I think it says 12 or 13 years. I'd have to remember. Maybe 13 years, 17, 13. I think it says 13 years in jail.
In jail, yeah.
That would be in.
It was 13, I believe.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Yeah, I think so too. Let's see.
So
Be around here. Let's find out. It's going to be in this chapter here. On Yosef. 1 second. No. Then they took him. היה אוכל לפיקדון. 1 second. ופרעה יוסף אחרי הודיע. יצא יוסף אל לאישה ויצא יוסף. I can't find it here, but I think it says 13 years. It's around there somewhere.
okay.
And then remember that Yosef's dream was 7 good years and then 7 bad years, right?
Right. They were in the
So
second year of the
so
good
Yosef-
years, of the bad years, right?
Right. Well, I don't remember it saying the second year, but yeah, does it say explicitly that they were in the second year of the bad years when Yaakov came down? That I don't remember, but they were in the
when the brothers went down, I think. Yeah. Let me see.
bad years. So yeah, right. You've got to add the 7. Okay.
Yeah, let's see what it says. It said something about, and we have 5 more years, something like that.
Yes, you're right. That's exactly right. It does say that. Good call. Yeah.
So they've had 9 years of famine after he goes from the prison. So we've got 13 and 9, 20 some years now.
Yep. Plus the 17. Plus he was 17 when he came down there.
Right.
Plus we know that he spent some time at Potiphar first before he was framed.
Right.
Right, for rape and sent to prison. So who knows how long that was? We don't know.
We don't know.
And yeah, so let's say that was a year. I don't know. We'll just give it a rough guess. Anyway, it turns out, I think when we put everything together, it turns out that he was about 40 years old when the brothers came down. Approximately, give or take. Yeah. And so the brothers came down and, they were already, that means that Levi was already at least, we'll say 10 years older. So Levi was already 50 at that point, right? So there goes our 57 years down the drain. So to make a long story short, it really requires a lot of investigation. And my personal opinion is, again, that you have to start with Exodus 12:40. And we know when the end of that 430-year period is. Work your way backwards. However, using evidence from the Torah, using, evidence from the Egyptologists, from archaeology, whatever the case may be, work your way backwards 430 years and then out from there, Right. If we do a rough estimate, we could just again, this is all just playing with numbers here a little bit, but let's say that each of these people, let's say that each son was born when their father was halfway through his life. Right. Okay? So that would mean we would cut off half of Levi's life, half of Kohat's life, and half of Moshe's life, and half of Amram's life from the count. So that would reduce us approximately by, let's see, and Levi was already 50 when he came down there. Okay. So let's say that would reduce us by about 137. We'll say reduced by 70, year reduced by 65, and reduced by another 70, 140, 60. So about 200 years gets cut off from here. So, and then we can work our way backwards. So if each generation is approximately, when the next one is born, let's say each generation is approximately halfway through their lives, we'll say 70 years old when the next generation is born. Well, then if we work back the generations before Levi, you have Yaakov. So that's another 70 years on top of the 200. So that's 270. You add another 70 that's back to Yitzchak, that's 340. And then you add another 70 that gets us back to Abraham, and that's 410. Again, this is just very, very, very rough estimates. But the basic idea is that it might. I have a feeling now that I'm thinking about it that really what it's talking about is from this point right here.
You really think it is?
That it's talking about that the starting point is. I think it might be. Yeah, I think that the starting point might be right here. This Brit Ben Abitorim, this covenant of the pieces. That's when the clock starts ticking on the 430 years. That's what I think. Maybe.
Well, I don't know. I've seen that, but I am also wondering, from the time Joseph went down to Egypt, that would add 20 some years to the thing, because he is a descendant of Abraham. So whether or not the whole group had to be down there, I don't know. It seems I know that it is pretty much rabbinic, the Genesis 15 story, to count from there. But is it possible that there was a generation that wasn't mentioned, that's somewhere hidden? It's just like to the very day. It says
I don't think
to
so.
the very day, and it's like there's got to be something hidden there. I don't know where it is. And Isaac makes it very clear. Isaac never was in Egypt. Yitzhak never went to Egypt. That was one of the things. He never was in Egypt. So,
right.
I mean, it's a very clear.
But remember, and I think
Go ahead.
I was going to say, but I think that. Okay, so being, how can I explain this? So it really wasn't until the Israelites are freed from Egypt where they become, for the first time free.
Right.
Everything's leading up to that, So again, I think we can never take the language of the Torah as literally, or I will say is linearly, as we do English and Western languages.
Yeah.
So I think maybe, so we read verse 13, Genesis 15:13. Okay, so this is what it says, if I translate it into English. Vayomer la'Avram yado teda ki ger, we'll start here, ger yeh zaracha, your descendants will be, or your seed will be sojourners, be'eretz lo lahem, in a land that is not theirs. Avdum ve'inu otam arba ma'ot shana, and they will enslave them and oppress them for 400 years. Okay. Well, I think maybe a way. I don't know if I could do a direct translation, but I think maybe a kind of paraphrase of that verse would be, you shall certainly know it will not be until 400 years from now that your descendants will be freed from slavery in Egypt.
Okay.
So again, that's just my interpretation, and I'm not even sure about that interpretation. But I think that's kind of not really, because it's not. Yeah, it's not. It's really requires a lot of looking into and a lot of study. And there's so many different. I mean, I was looking through different articles on it, and everyone has their own idea. In all fairness, I guess Rashi, although I don't agree with all the details, saying, and then I go look up one of his comments, makes a little bit of sense, and then the apologize to him. I think I agree with his basic sentiment. You have to really count back all the way to the time of Abraham to get to get the 430 years. Just my personal opinion.
All right.
You know,
It'll be interesting to see what we have to say about this.
Don't take my.
I said that'll be interesting to see what we have to say about this next year.
Yeah, well, let's continue thinking about it and do research and see what comes up. I certainly that my thought process is the correct. It's just I just think you have to start at the end. The only thing I think I can say is that you have to start the end point and work your way backwards, and wherever that ends up, then that's where it ends up.
That's the only
that I'm pretty sure about, because I don't think because I don't think that Exodus 12:40 is figurative. It's definitely meant to be quite literal. And again, if you look at it, it's Genesis.
Okay.
You know, it's kind of very clear. Moshe ben Israel asher yashvu b'mitzrayim 30 shana ו400 shana, and the settlement of the children of Israel while they lived in Egypt was 430 years. So ויהי מקץ 30 שנה ו400 שנה ויהי עצם היזה יצאו כל צבאות יהוה מארץ מצרים. And it was at the end of 430 years on this very day that the armies of Yehovah went out of the land of Egypt. So again, I would translate as something along the lines of Moshe ben Israel asher yashvu b'Mitzrayim 30 shana 400 shana. So something of after 430 years that the Israelites were freed. Okay. That's the best I can come up with, honestly, at this point. So.
Okay.
Come up with. Should we get to this week's Parsha?
Oh, I'm with it. Yeah, let's go to it.
Yeah. All right. So we're in Exodus 10. And we're up to locusts, one of my favorite plagues. And
several interesting things in these plagues that we came across, because like for instance, the hail took out everything, and then all of a sudden there's breeze there for the locust to eat. So
what happened there?
Right.
Be interested to hear you. Cattle as well. Yeah,
the cattle had all died, and then they had to bring in the rest of the cattle. So.
Well, it doesn't say that the hail took out everything. Actually, what it does say is it speaks specifically about the barley and the flax and the wheat and the spelt.
Yeah.
So those are all grasses, basically, right? Those are all flowers that can be easily destroyed by hail.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And then it's about the cattle or the herds, or the livestock and the slaves that weren't taken in under shelter, that they also would die or died, right? There's a lot left for whatever the hail didn't get for the locusts.
Yeah.
Right. If I remember, just a bit, anything all destroyed anywhere in the hail. I'll just stretch your hand. Hail. It was a hail in the fields people and animals. It beat down everything, growing fields, and it does say strip every tree.
Every tree, yeah.
To this 20, yeah. One second. Okay. It says the flags were destroyed since the headed and the bloom. So that wheat and the spelt, the barley and flax. We know that. So really, okay. So here, let's look at the Hebrew. Where was it?
30.
Here.
31, sorry.
One. Okay. No, I meant where it said the tree. Okay, it's 25. So it's 25.
Yeah. Sorry.
So it's 925.
They'll strip the entire land of
Yeah, yeah.
And it says, "V'yachabrad b'chol eretz Mitzrayim et kol asher b'samei adam v'ad behema v'et kol esav hasadeh hika v'et kol hasadeh shiber." So this is the word shiber. Shiber means to break.
Right.
Or to like rend asunder. Right? So it doesn't mean strip. That's again a bad English translation. The shaber is to
okay.
modern Hebrew anyway, is to break, and I assume.
Yeah.
Right. It's Lisbon. Lisbon. They strip. It says break. So you can picture this hail coming down, and basically just, decimating the trees, but not killing them. Branches falling off and, and stuff like that, but not completely stripping them bare of their vegetation.
Right.
Okay. Makes
right?
sense.
That would be, and that would be taken care of by the locusts. And in fact, it says something interesting with the plague of the locusts. It kind of points to that. Which is, if I could just find it for a second. 1 second.
Assume the remaining residue. Verse 5.
Verse 5.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm. Yep. That's exactly what it is. V'lo yuchal lirot et haaretz. There it is, exactly, right?
Mm-hmm.
It will consume the leftover remainder of whatever remained for you from the hail, right? So these words, right? Yeah. So these words would imply that yes, the hail did a lot of damage, but whatever's left over, some was left over, and now the locusts are going to completely finish it off.
Yeah.
So there'll be nothing left by the time the locusts get done, right?
That's it.
Yeah. So, Exodus 10. How do you want to? Do you have a preference? How you guys want to do this? Do you want me to just start reading through and translating? Are there particular topics or questions that you have? Or let's start with that. Do you have any
go ahead and start reading
topics or questions that you want to explore?
I think just go ahead and start reading, and as things pop up, we'll talk about it.
If that's all right with you, that's how we like to do it. Is just read through, and then when something pops up, pick on it.
Sounds good to me. All right, let's do that. Let me just Shalom to them. Shalom. Shalom, Ricky and April.
Can I just make a comment?
Okay. All right, then.
It's so interesting when you read the English, where they, for want of a better word, where they mess around with the name Yehovah. It's so obvious that it says the name of Yehovah. It doesn't say the name Hashem.
Right.
it's something we've been picking up on a lot as we've been going through studying with you. The more we study, the more we see how they just, why have they taken the name out of it? Why did they do that?
Well, I cannot claim to be as much of an expert on this topic as another Karaite who I don't particularly like, but who has done a lot of research on this topic. And I would suggest looking into some of his research, because in all fairness, he really is the expert on this particular topic. I could say that in general, there was a, going back to very early times, to rabbinical times, that there was a stigma associated with saying the name, and that in Jewish translations, which then extended itself to, or I should say not in Jewish translations, but in Jewish law, which then extended itself to translations into other languages, that became extended, and that's why you'll have Yehovah often translated as, almost always in the English translations, as the Lord, right? They'll usually translate Yehovah as Lord, and Elohim is God. So that's the way they make the distinction. What was I going to say? I was just going to say something else, and I forgot my train of thought. But to be honest, in all fairness, I recommend looking into that other Karaite's research, because he really has done a lot of research on the topic, and you can get a lot of information out of what he has to say about it. But I'll just leave it at that. Yeah. But yeah, there's always been a stigma, and that's the reason that the name of God became, thought of as ineffable, that it couldn't even be said or repeated. Yeah. And we know that in the Masoretic texts, so the idea is, and it's may or may not be correct. There are other Karaites that claim it's not correct, but if you look at the Masoretic texts, then there's this idea. Well, there's another Karaite also, who Yaakov ben Yisrael, who has a completely different opinion, and he's also done a lot of research on this topic. You can, also listen to what he has to say. And basically, so first of all, the common view is that in the Masoretic texts, where you have the name or the letters Yud He Vav He appear, that you have the vowelization of either Adonai or Elohim underneath those four letters, which are a kind of clue to not say Yehovah, but to say either Adonai or Elohim. Are you guys familiar with that concept? First of all,
I've seen that before. Yeah.
Right. So that's the standard. That's the standard opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's the standard opinion. And if you want, we could just go even take a look at such a case. Do you want to dig into this, or you want me to just brush over it a little bit?
That's good.
Okay. Yeah. So, but if you look in let's say the Leningrad Codex, which you can find online, for instance, you'll see that where it says Yud He Vav He, you'll see vowelization underneath it in many cases, which are either the vowels of Adonai or the vowels of Elohim. Okay. So this one Karaite who I mentioned, I think his general claim is that in many cases it actually does say the correct vowels of Yehovah, and that it's not the vowels of Adonai or Elohim. I don't know how he explains where it actually does in many cases say have the vowels of Adonai and Elohim, but you'll have to go look at his research. Okay. Then this other Karaite, Hakham Melech ben Yisrael, who really is an excellent expert in Hebrew as well. he has a different opinion, and he says that that it actually does have the vowels of Adonai and Elohim under Yud Hey Vav Hey, and he uses he thinks the name of God is actually, I think he thinks it's Yahweh, if I'm not mistaken, and so he takes a kind of a more Hebrew grammatical approach to explaining why he thinks what he thinks. But there are different opinions out there. In all fairness, I tend to go with the first Karaite's opinion rather than Yaakov and Yisrael's. But just to point out that there are different opinions out there. But at any rate, what is clear is that there was a stigma from very early times, going back to early rabbinical times, of saying the name, and that has worked its way down to this day, and into the English translations, and of course into Hebrew society, where people won't even say Adonai. They'll say Hashem instead of Adonai, right?
Yeah.
They won't even say Elohim. They'll say Elohim.
Right. Or Shakai.
And then
El Shakai.
Yeah, El Shakai. And then my ex-wife used to make a joke that instead of saying Eliyahu, they'll say Elikaku.
Oh, my Lord.
So whatever. And then sometimes I've seen it so extreme that I've seen people write the word Hashem, H-A-S. I think they leave out the H or something, like H-A-H-E-M or something like that. They'll put a dash in of Hashem because they think that's, it's endless how ridiculous it can get,
It really is.
It is ridiculous, especially when the promise is given for those who proclaim the name. And Moses stood and proclaimed the name, and it's. I mean, how do you even know who you're talking about?
Exactly. Exactly. The whole point, I was saying that in this morning study, the whole point of it says explicitly the whole point of the 10 plagues of the Exodus is to show to let people know who Yehovah is.
Right. That's
right. Remember, this name had just been revealed to Moses at the burning bush not long before the plagues take place. Right. No one knew this name before. Okay.
Right. And Pharaoh says, "And who is Yehovah?" I mean, he's told to go and tell Pharaoh that Yehovah said to get his people out of there, and he's like, "And who is this?" So he had to learn who he was.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying this morning, and that verse is actually to me that's one of my favorite verses, because to me, if I were to sum up the entire Exodus story in one verse, it would be that exact verse. That's actually my favorite verse of the whole story, because that Pharaoh says that. I think it's Exodus 4. No, it's after this. Exodus 5. Remember, I promised myself I was going to memorize the first chapter and verse for this particular verse, but wait, where is it? Here it is.
I've sent to Hashem. You got. Sorry, I'm reading the English, and I just read. It's 16.
16. Yeah, I was looking at 2, but let's look at 16. 16? I don't see it. 16. I see it here in verse 2. So in Exodus chapter 5, verse 2, it says, "Vayomer Paro mi Yehovah asher eshma beqolo v'shalach et Yisrael lo yadati et Yehovah v'gam et Yisrael lo shalach." And Pharaoh said, "Who is Yehovah that I should listen to him to let Israel go? I don't know this Yehovah dude." I'm just paraphrasing. I don't know this Yehovah. I never heard of this God before, Yehovah. And I'm not going to let Israel go. Don't start bringing me some God I never heard of and telling me he's going to let Israel go, and or that I should let Israel go in his name. Okay. And the whole irony of it is that slowly but surely Pharaoh is going to find out. We could do this either the easy way or the hard way. And Pharaoh is going to find out the hard way exactly who this God Yehovah is, right? Yeah. Till at the end, and maybe we could pair the two verses together. it says, let me find the exact verse. Right. And there are a number of them, but let's see here. No, it's before this. It's before this. No, it's going to be in Exodus 11. No, I'm sorry. It's in 13 after all. 13. One second here. I gotta find it. No, it's before this. 12. It's not 12. It's 12. It's all laws. So it's got to. Oh, here it is. Yeah. The exercise begins. 1 second here. 19. We saw. Israel. No, it's not there. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Verse Exodus 12, verse. We'll start in verse 31. And it says, "Vayikra leMoshe uleAaron," and Pharaoh called to Moses and Aaron, Laila, that night, V'yomer, Chumutzu mitoch ami, get up, get out, get the heck out of here, from my people, don't let the door hit your butt on the way out. Gamatem, or maybe do let the door hit your butt on the way out, real hard. Gamatem v'gam b'nei Israel, you and the children of Israel, l'chu evdu et Yehovah kidaberchem, and go serve Yehovah as you had requested. Gam tzonchen, gam bekarchem, also your flocks and your herds. Chu kasher dibartem, take as you requested. Ulechu ubarachtem gamoti, and go and bless me also. In other words, Pharaoh is now asking for a blessing from Yehovah, right? He says, go worship Yehovah and bless me also, right? Yeah. So we go from Exodus 5, 2 or whatever it was. I don't know who Yehovah is, and I'm not going to send the children of Israel out to get the hell out of here and tell Yehovah to give me a blessing as well.
Yeah, and that's a perfect example there of why in 31 there, rise up and go out from among my people, even the children of Israel, go and serve Hashem. Who?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Maybe we should go and serve. Maybe we shouldn't say Hashem. Maybe we should say Hakham. Yeah. I remember how upset people would get sometimes when I would write the word G-O-D instead of G-D. Oh my God! I would get feedback. I would get people angry at me for writing G-O-D. Like, how could you? You can't write the name of God. You idiot! That's not the name of God. That's it's G-O-D is not the name of God. That's right?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Right.
Everything has to have a dash in it if there's a vowel in it.
Right. Exactly. So, Pharaoh undergoes quite a transformation, we should say. He goes from being a non-believer to a believer. At least let's give him that. He did end up believing in Yehovah. I mean, his entire nation had to be completely, burnt to the ground or, decimated for him to get to that point. But hey, in the end, he got there, right?
Yeah. But then
we could do this the easy way or the hard way.
Threw it all out.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing, right? That he then has his armies go chase after Israel. It's like it goes to show. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ben. You were going to say something.
No. Didn't have anything.
Oh, okay. I was going to say it just goes to show that the arrogance and ego, a person's own ego can be their own destruction,
sure.
Right? And it's like, and not only that, we have to remember that the Egyptian kings they thought they were gods. They were proclaimed, right? So in Pharaoh's eyes and in the Egyptians' eyes, this is not just a battle between nations. This is a battle between gods. Like who's God, whose daddy is more powerful, right? It's my daddy versus your daddy. You know, it's an old schoolyard fight on steroids. So you know, it's really kind of what it is. I mean, it's amazing, how you see through the Torah how childish humanity is a lot of times. You know, it's high school all over again for eternity, it seems. But but so Pharaoh, see, it's more than just a personal thing. What's basically at stake here is the entire, shall we say, the entire worldview, the entire cosmology, spiritual cosmology of Egypt. Yeah. That's what's really being threatened here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so Pharaoh, by being defeated, it's not just a personal defeat for him; it's a defeat for everything that he believes in. I am a god. Egypt is the greatest society ever. We're the most enlightened. Admit defeat because we are better and smarter and wiser than everyone else, right? That's really what's at stake here.
That's what's at stake. Yeah.
It's the same arrogance that the United States of America has today.
Yeah. The same arrogance.
Really. It really. Yeah. America's a special nation, and what do they always say? The exceptionality of the United States of America, and they can never admit defeat, even when they haven't won a war since 1945, basically, it's plague after plague has come upon America, whether it's been wars or all of the horrible stuff that has happened in that country for many years, and they're still continuing in their arrogance, and and what's it going to take? It's going to take, I guess, the same thing that happened to Egypt is going to, if they don't change their ways, is going to happen to the United States of America, and they'll probably still be insisting that they're the greatest country ever in the history of the world. You hear that all the time. Yeah, they really believe it. I mean, we all grew up. Well, Ben, you lived in the United States for a while,
right?
Yeah.
I lived there for nearly 27 years. Yeah. So
right. So you
27 years, even. I mean, I can tell you that the vast difference between when I first arrived there and when I left. It was not the same country. It's been going downhill fast.
No. It's not the same country. It's not. It's I grew up in the I grew up in the I guess the 80s, you could say, 70s, 80s, really the 80s, and I even remember when I was a little kid in the 70s, and I don't even recognize the country anymore. It's just a different country now.
But it's not just America. It seems to be the whole of Western society, because England. I say England. The United Kingdom gag.
Right.
I've got no time for them. It has gone downhill so incredibly fast. And people, you cannot tell people that that is not the country that I grew up in. I grew up in the 50s and 60s, and it was still a relatively, I guess, free society. But it not now. Anything but.
Yeah, I totally understand, and it's what was I going to say? I was going to say that a lot of times in the evening, when I the TV show The Honeymooners, by any chance?
Seems like I've seen that before. I'm not sure.
With Jackie Gleason, Norton, Ralph Cramden, and Ed Norton.
Cool.
Takes place in the 50s.
I think
okay, now you've given them Yeah, I remember.
Right. At any rate, one of my favorite shows of all time. So when I was growing up, my dad and I would watch it every night. And it's life in America in the 1950s. Basically, it's comedy. It's hilarious. And what I've been doing, I would say for months now, maybe years, just about every night when I'm taking a shower, I listen to the Honeymooners.
really?
And I think I listened to it. Yeah, I think I listened to it for a number of reasons. Number one, I love the show. I always have ever since I was a kid. But I think one of the main reasons I listen to it is to kind of try to remember what the United States once was.
Yeah.
And to kind of lament that it's become a completely it's unrecognizable to me compared to what it was when I was a kid. It's just completely unrecognizable at this point.
And when it's like you got this Johnson character in Britain and this Biden character in the US, and they're both cut out of exactly the same mold.
And Trudeau in Canada.
Oh, and Trudeau. Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Don't forget Macron in France.
Yeah. Oh, you pissed me off.
Yeah, right. Yeah, his statement this week that he's going to, they translated it as piss off the unvaccinated, but I think the French word literally means it's emmerder or something like that, which comes from the word merde, which means, excuse my French, literally shit. And I think it means like to take a shit on people.
Same as Spanish.
So it's well, he certainly did piss the French off by saying that. You got that. Yeah. Great. Right. And there's an election coming up in France, I think in March, and you've got Marine Le Pen is running, and then there's the Jewish guy, I forgot his name, who's also quite right wing and anti-immigration. So he's running. So I don't think it was a good idea. I don't think it was a good time for Macron to start pissing people off.
If what they say is true and there's 10%, and I think it's probably a lot more than 10%, then he made a bad choice of words there. But Trudeau got back in, so who knows?
Right. Yeah, it's true. And what's that lowlife in California who is up for a recall? Pretty boy Gavin Newsom. Boy, can't stand. I look at his face and I just want to. I just want to give him a punch right in the nose. I hate that guy. I just hate his smug, arrogant face. Oh, I can't take it. I really can't even stand looking at him. At any rate, you're right. All these people keep on getting back in, and so who knows what's going to happen in France in March. But I think you are right about one thing. When they say 10% are still unvaccinated, I would imagine that's they're probably lying about the numbers outright, because that's the way they get more people vaccinated. Number two, they're not taking into account all the people who have fake vaccination cards, which I'm sure is a large percentage, maybe another 10%, if not more. And so it's probably more like 20 or 25% that are unvaccinated.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting in verse 7 here, where even Pharaoh's servants are like, what are you going to do now? It's like these people have become a snare to us. They're all of a sudden not wanting to go along with Pharaoh.
Right. And these are, so it's interesting. And you said it's verse 7. No, I'm looking at the wrong one. So it's
10 verse 7. And it's almost like the same world stage that people in different countries are saying, we don't want to follow you. We don't want to follow the leadership.
Well, what's interesting is that whenever the plagues are mentioned, it says it has a similar phrase. Say to Pharaoh and his servants and all of Egypt that whatever, there will be blood in the Nile. Right? That phrase is used again and again and again. For instance, let's see. Let's see if I can find an example. We'll go back to Exodus 9. Let's see. Fifth plague livestock. One second. I'll look one more time. I can't find it. Okay, I can't find it right now. But a lot of times it uses the phrase Pharaoh and his avadim, his servants, and all of Egypt and Mitzrayim, right? And so it's interesting now that we have those servants, those avadim, in verse 7, who finally are basically, they're protesting. They're not going along with Pharaoh. They're protesting against his decision. They're basically saying, listen, dude, wake that, the heck up and smell the coffee, because your entire nation is crumbling around you. And, it's really time to just let these people go already. Right. Right. That's what it says in verse 7. Right. Pharaoh, and the servants of Pharaoh said to him, Elav, Ad matai yezeh lanu lemokesh. How long are you going to let these people be a snare to us? Shalach et anashim, let these people go. V'avdu et Yehovah Elohem, and let them worship Yehovah their God. Haterem teda ki avda Mitzrayim. Do you still not know that that Egypt has been destroyed? That Egypt is lost, right? So the avadim, who are always lumped together with Pharaoh and his avadim and all of Mitzrayim, are now finally rebelling.
We are
against them, right? So
it actually had an effect on him, because the next verse says that he's asking, okay, well, you can go, but which ones are going?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And those were interesting verses. I was actually talking about that earlier today, and so I'll get to that verse in a second. But what's interesting here is, again, that even though now his own servants, who are always mentioned together with him, are rebelling against him, and he just can't do it. He cannot let these people go, because, again, for him to let these people go is more than just admitting defeat. It's admitting defeat of everything he and his nation believe in and stand for. In
other words, to admit weakness, to admit that he has no power.
To admit that, not just that he has no power, but to admit that everything, that all of Egyptian society and world philosophy and everything they believe in is fundamentally incorrect. Again, the same reason that the United States can never, ever admit defeat. Because for the United States to admit defeat is to admit that, quote unquote democracy, not the United States is even a democracy anymore, that democracy is wrong, and American exceptionalism is wrong, and they throw all these words around like freedom and democracy, and they don't even mean anything anymore. They've completely emptied of their meaning, but they like to throw those words around. And America could never even admit defeat, even if they are being defeated, because for the same reason, they to admit defeat is to admit that everything that they believed for their entire lives is wrong. Right. And in this case, and I think what's happening in the case of America is really, even though it's not explicit like this, we do really have a war now between, we would say, American point of view, American worldview, and Torah worldview, right? And America, yes, it's all the West, but really, I think America is really driving the whole thing, because of their success has led to their own arrogance and has led them to leave the ways of God. But America is, they're really fighting a war with Torah and with Yehovah at this point. They think Torah and Yehovah and everything he stands for and everything the Torah stands for is just primitive and stupid, the realm of just, idiotic, primitive, Iron Age, peasants that, could never defeat, the great, advanced technological and advanced democratic society of America. And, but in the end it will. Yeah. And it's the same, it's kind of the same thing going on,
Yeah.
Just as Pharaoh can admit defeat, because he looks at these, these stupid slaves, these peasants, these shepherds from the hill country of Canaan, on the outskirts of his empire, with their their stupid god who he never heard of. They're going to come and tell great Egyptian pharaoh, who's a god and the greatest society on the face of the earth, what to do. No, he won't allow it. So even if his entire world is crumbling around him, he cannot get it into his mind that he's wrong and they're right, that his daddy, his God is not the strong one, his God is fake, and that the God of Israel is
right.
real.
Amen.
Yeah. It really is kind of a battle between good and evil when you get right down to it.
Yep.
And the same thing, sadly, is going on in Israel itself right now. It's so sad.
Israel's the 51st
That's
state.
the only reason we left. It was just so disgusting.
Bowing the knee to the nations, continually depending on the nations for their strength instead of Yehovah.
Absolutely. I've there's a phrase I've been saying for many years, which is that Israel suckles on the teat of the West, and when the teat dies, or when the West dies, then the teat dies, and Israel will also die, because that's what they are at this point. They're just an outpost of the West, and proud of it.
Yeah. My big, or one of the things that I said about was back in May, when they had that little shindig, they fired off. If it was 4,000 Iron Dome rockets they fired off, then it was about $280 million worth of rockets to knock down those missiles, and it was a lot more than 4,000.
Mm-hmm.
Why the hell didn't they just take the tanks in there and flatten it in 5 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
It's just ridiculous.
Why even take the tanks? That's why waste good tanks? Got plenty of bombs.
Exactly.
Burn it to the ground, whatever.
Yeah, just go in with the aircraft and zap the place. But it would have cost $10 million to go in with tanks, and it cost them $280 million.
Right.
Well, anyway, that's another story.
Yeah. And this idiot Bennett with his who pretends to be a Torah observant Jew with his little penny-sized kippah on his head that he sticks on there, I think, with Scotch tape or something like that. Literally. He uses something called keep-on. I read it in an article somewhere in one of the Israeli newspapers.
Yeah, there was a guy
Scotch tape to keep it on his head. At any rate.
There was
What's that?
Developed that glue that he uses is specifically for him to put that thing on the back of his head.
Right, so he can pretend he's religious, so he can pretend he's a Torah observant Jew, and yet he's also just kowtowing to the West, as they all do.
Yeah, every one of them. So, anyway.
Well,
and soon enough, the other guy, his buddy over there, Lapid, is going to be. Say again, Ariel?
I was just laughing. Lapid, the alternate prime minister, right?
Yeah. So I mean, that guy is, when he gets to be prime minister, then already the government is kind of left wing. When that guy gets in to be prime minister, if the government lasts that long, then forget about it. All hell is going to break loose.
Hell breaks loose.
Anywho, so I totally understand why you guys are not there anymore.
It's so sad, though. It really is so sad.
It's disheartening and discouraging and frustrating just to think that we're promised, as Israelites, as Jews, we're promised that we're going to live in the land. It's going to be a land flowing with milk and honey. That we're going to live in houses that we didn't build. We're going to harvest grapes from vineyards that we didn't plant. Right. And and we're each going to have a patch of land, a piece of land, an inheritance in the land that is ours, that can never, ever, ever be taken away, right?
Absolutely.
It can be rented out, but it has to be returned in the Jubilee year. It belongs to us forever. The government can't come take it away, even if we don't pay taxes. Nobody can ever take it away. It belongs to us, and that's the promises in the Torah. And the reality is just it's just sickening. It's
It really is.
people stuffed into cities and in crowded apartment blocks as if they're living in Eastern Europe before the fall of the Soviet Union. They can barely make ends meet. It's very difficult to make ends meet there. You can't even worry about your own. You have to worry about your own personal safety. You can't even drive around, in the big cities, or especially out in Yehuda Shomron, without worrying, am I going to get shot? Am I going to get stones thrown at me? I mean, this is it's sickening. This is not the Zionist dream. This is not the dream that the Torah promised us.
I wonder what people like Begin, the giants of Zionism, Jabotinsky, and people like that.
What they would say today.
It's so sad that they.
Well, Begin started the problems. I know. Well, Begin started the whole thing, right? He was the one who first made peace with Anwar Sadat in '79, and gave away the Sinai.
Really.
Begin was in the end useless.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Our land is our land, and it's been given to us eternally. It doesn't belong to them.
That's for sure. So, and of course, we don't even have to talk about the irony of the fact that we were in control of the Gaza Strip. And now that's where the little shindig, as you called it, was launched from. It's just sickening. And the equivalence that they're making between the Jewish lives and the lives of the enemy. I don't care what people you are. You could be whatever people you come from. You look after your own before you worry about the enemy.
Exactly.
And
that's right.
They're more worried about.
It's world opinion.
They're more worried about the enemy than they are about their own people.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. World opinion. Let's get. I know this isn't all to do with. Well, it is all to do with Torah because it is so anti-Torah. I saw that they've just voted in that the 130,000, I believe it is, illegal buildings are now going to be connected to the grid.
Yeah. The electricity grid, right?
Yeah. I mean, what the?
Under Bennett.
Under
Bennett, the supposed right-wing guy, under Bennett, Mr. Right Wing.
Yeah. And that's Torah. That's a Torah religious Jew doing that.
Right.
Wow.
That's right. Well, yeah. He, once you try to become part of the monster, you get swallowed by it. You get assimilated by it.
Yep.
And that's.
Yep.
It happened to every so-called right-wing guy, from Begin to Bennett. You get swallowed by the monster, and you just become part of it. The prime minister has a certain amount of power, but don't forget, so does what the Israeli deep state, we could say.
Yeah.
The heads of the security agencies, the people who've been in the army forever, the rich families, the oligarchs of Israel. They're really the ones who hold power in Israel when you get right down to it.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Not just. It's the old guard in Brooklyn as well. It's the money in Brooklyn that's running Israel, not the Israeli people.
Yeah. The good point. It's the rich Jews of America who Israel is dependent on their money, and it's America who through Jewish influence in the United States gets a lot of money from the American government, right?
Yeah.
So Israel is not an independent. It's not an independent nation. That's for sure.
It's anything but an independent nation, and it just blew me away when we went there, and I realised just how corrupt it was. I mean, the Middle East is corrupt anyway. Everybody knows that, but to see the disgusting, the way they bow down to the nations, and they're doing exactly what Hashem said don't do, bowing down to the nations. There's no light to the nations there at all.
Right.
Sorry, I still use Hashem, and it's not. I'm ashamed to say Yahweh or anything. It's it just slips out now and then.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a habit.
Yeah, of course. And it's always the so-called right wingers and the so-called religious that always make the biggest concessions. I think Rabbi Kahana used to say it's the right wingers, the so-called right wingers who always end up doing the giving away the most land and making the most left-wing decisions.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Please,
Anywho.
It changes soon.
Bring Mashiach.
Yeah. Well, hopefully God will make His presence known one of these days.
That's right.
Please let it happen.
Amen. All right. Do you guys want to continue? I mean, should we go on, or what do you guys plan?
It's up to you. Whatever you want to do, Melech. You've been.
I usually go for about another
30 minutes.
I usually go for like another hour or so, but whenever you guys feel you need to go, just go. I mean, I don't want to make you feel you have to sit there if you have things to do, whenever you have to go, just say Melech.
This is actually a very
fair enough, I don't want
This is actually very stimulating for us.
After so much going on.
It's good to talk to somebody that's got similar views
Well, I hold back on my views because I don't want to get kicked off YouTube. Put it that way.
Ich verstehe.
Okay. All right. So getting back to Exodus. Yep. So all right. So we're up to locusts. So I guess I'll read through. Starting in chapter 10, and whenever we want to discuss something, then we can. Maybe we discussed locusts enough. Let's go to darkness.
The darkness.
Yeah.
How about that? Yeah. Okay, so we are in Exodus chapter 10.
21.
This thing back. Yeah. Exodus chapter 10, verse 21. And it says, "Wayomer Yehovah el Moshe, nitei yadcha al hashamayim, vahi choshech al eretz Mitzrayim, ve yamish choshech." So Yehovah said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand upon the heavens, upon the sky, and there shall be darkness upon the land of Egypt. Ve yamish choshech, and the darkness shall be, you should be able to feel it. It should be palpable."
Wow.
Amish. And what's interesting is we have one thing I noticed here is, so it says Netei yadcha al shamayim, stretch out your hand on the heavens. There's a lot of stretching out of hands, right? It's like a repetitive theme, right? It says that that Yehovah says, "I will free Israel with a strong arm and an outstretched hand." right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we constantly have this outstretching of the hand. Moshe or Aaron, they're taking the staff and they're stretching it out over, let's say, the waters, over the Nile River to make the blood and the frogs. There's constantly this theme of stretching out the hand that repeats itself.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Is that kind of
All right. Again, if someone's looking.
Yeah, is that kind of something to do with like stretching out a sword? Is it an allegory for that?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a sign. I think it's a sign of, let's say, an offensive, posture, let's say, or an attack.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
But if we look, let's see. If I could just grab this word here. And let's see. So we've got it in Exodus. So Exodus 6. No, that's something else. So Exodus 16. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm. Right? Exodus 6. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm out. Right? In Exodus 7, verse 5, Ani Yehovah bin toti et yadi. I am Yehovah when I stretch out my hand. Right? So this analogy of God stretching out his hand is used a number of times, we see.
Yeah.
And then in Exodus 7:19, right? Take your staff and stretch out your hand on, I think that's going to be over the waters of Egypt or whatever it may be. In Exodus 8:5, Yoah speaks to Aaron and says, stretch out your hand. And then he stretched out his hand, and again and again and again. So we see again for a bunch of the, let's see, let's just take one at random. Exodus 9:22. And it says, "V'yomer Yehovah el Moshe netet yadcha ala shamayim." This is where we are right now. Oh no, that's for the barad, the hail, right? So Exodus 9:22, Yehovah said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand upon the heavens, vayhi barad b'chol eretz Mitzrayim, and there shall be hail upon all the land of Egypt, etc., etc." Right? So there's this constant theme of lintot, to stretch out, of stretching out, right? The staff is stretched out, the hand is stretched out, God's arm is stretched out. He will free Israel with a strong hand and an outstretched arm, etc. So look out for this word whenever it appears. Yep. At any rate, so there will be choshech, palpable or darkness that you can feel. If we look at this word here, to feel or grope, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's see again, just to get an idea of the word. Yeah. So here's the same word is used. This is in the case of Isaac deceiving, or Rivka telling Isaac to deceive telling Jacob to deceive his father Isaac.
Mm.
And it says here in Genesis 27:12.
Uh-huh. To feel.
It says here, right. So Rivka is telling Jacob, put goat skin on your arms. Oh no, Jacob is saying here, Ulai imusheni avi. Maybe my father will feel me, but ve'haiti be'anav. And I'll be like a liar in his eyes. Oh boy, my battery's about to go dead, but that's all right. I'll deal with it in a second. And when he sees that I'm a liar, he'll curse me rather than bless me. And then Genesis 27:13. V'tomer lo imo alai klalatcha b'ni ach shema b'koli v'lech kach li. Okay, skip ahead a little bit, and it says in verse 15, "V'tikach Rivka et orot gidi'ei ha'izim." So he took skin from one of the goats and put it on Yaakov's hands, right? Because he was afraid. Because Yaakov had said he was afraid that his father would feel him, would touch him, and feel that his arms are not hairy like Esav's hair, right? So this word, the whole point of this is this word which we see here in Exodus 10:21, where it says "V'yamesh choshech," right? It's that same word as feel. So the darkness should be felt or should be palpable.
Okay.
Somehow it's like a real thick darkness that maybe you can actually feel it somehow or another, right? Maybe it's I don't know, heavy clouds or humidity or something like that. That it actually, the darkness should be felt, should be perceived by the sense of touch somehow. Is really what this means.
Wow.
Right?
It's certainly true that when you're in I don't know if you've ever been down in a mine and they turn the lights off on you.
Or cave.
Or in a cave, yeah. It's certainly true that when you're in that kind of darkness, it is almost palpable.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, there's whatever. Let's say you're in a cave. There are minerals and water vapor in the air, and you can almost sense it even when it's completely dark.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
It's a very scary feeling.
Yeah.
Yep. Did you work in a mine?
No. I've been down in mines.
Oh, okay.
Oh, good. And they turned the lights off on us just to show us what it was like if they lost the power down there, and it was like, whoa. You literally you're right next door. Almost touching the person next to you, but it was so black.
Yeah.
You just had no
Idea
that there was anything else there.
Yep. Yeah, I hear you. Well, I guess that's kind of what they're talking about. I think that again, there's some kind of a bunch of midrashim that there was. I can't remember, something that you can actually touch. Well, let's look at Rashi just for the heck of it. That's Exodus 10:21. Let's see what Rashi has to say about this one. I always get a lot of laughs out of Rashi, and sometimes I learn something from him.
Surely not.
Sometimes I learn something. Let's see. Where'd Rashi go? Rashi. There we go. So it's, what was it, 10:21? Yeah, 21. Genesis 10:21, and Rashi says, oh, that's Genesis. Did that again. I have to go to Exodus. Let's try Exodus 10:21. וימש חושך. יחשיך עליהם חושך יותר מחשכו של לילה. חושך של לילה יעמיש יחשיך עוד. So it says something along the lines of there will be darkness that will come upon them that is greater than the darkness of night. It will feel like the darkness of night, and then it will become even darker.
Yeah.
And then he says Yamesh, again, just to save time, I'll just read in the English. Yamesh means as much as a contraction of Ya'amesh, you feel form of Emesh, evening darkness. Okay, we have many, I don't think he's right about that. We have many words in which an aleph is omitted. Since the sound of the aleph is not very marked, scripture is not particular about omitting it. An example is blah, blah, blah. We'll skip ahead a little bit. Uncle is translated in the sense of removing. shall not depart. Yamush is rendering being, but there shall be darkness after the darkness of the night has departed, i.e., when the time approaches near the light of the day, but the statement is not fit. Blah blah blah. We'll skip ahead. Midrashic statements explains it in the sense of Deuteronomy, groping at noonday, so that the meaning would be that it was of such a double character, so thick that was something tangible in it. Okay, fair enough analysis. Okay, maybe I'm gonna have to revise my opinion of tentatively or revise my opinion of Rashi at certain times, because that's actually a lot to
Actually pretty good there.
to digest what he has to say over there. Fair enough. Yeah. So, but sometimes he says really stupid things,
Yeah.
but he's really getting most of it from rabbinical midrashim. So what Yamesh means, which we won't go into now, but let's see what Robert Alter says. He's a good one. So, let's see what Everett Fox says first. He's also a very nice translation. If you guys don't have this Everett Fox translation, I can send it to you.
Oh wow, yeah, that'd be great.
It's a PDF file. Just let me know.
Okay. Well, please.
Yeah. Just remind me on the group, and I'll send it out to the group.
Okay.
So, yeah. So we're in Exodus. So this is 10:21. So Everett Fox. It's a short file because there's no commentary. It's a translation. It's a good one. Everett Fox is I think he was a religious Jew, and he made a nice translation of the Torah. Yoah said to Moshe, "Stretch out your hand over the heavens, and let there be darkness over the land of Egypt. They will feel darkness."
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Mhm.
and then we've got Robert Alter. Oops, where'd Robert Alter go? So 10:27 again. No, 10:21. A darkness one can feel.
Yeah.
The force of the hyperbole, which beautifully conveys the claustrophobic palpability of absolute darkness, is diminished by those who try to provide a naturalistic explanation for this plague, or indeed any of the others, i.e., a desert wind bearing particles of sand and dust darkens the land and makes the darkness palpable. Nor would solar eclipse work as an explanation, since the darkness persists for 3 days. Good point. Although elements of nature are used in all of the plagues, except perhaps this one mentions by God in the order of nature, signs and portents that demonstrate his power over the created world.
Mhm.
Interesting. That's an interesting. So he says it's hyperbole. Basically, that's the key. He says. So he says that it doesn't mean literally you can feel it. So he disagrees with you and me, saying, let's say he gives the example of desert wind bearing particles of sand, which causes the sky to darken, but you can actually feel the particles of sand. So he's disagreeing with you and me, and he's basically saying that darkness one can feel means it's kind of a hyperbole. It's kind of a poetic. It's exaggeration for the poetic for poetic effect. Okay, fair enough. He might be right. Yamish Choshech. Okay. All right, let's go on to verse 20. Vayet Moshe et yado ala shamayim, and Moshe stretched out. There's a stretched out again. His hand upon the heavens. Vahi choshech afela b'chol eretz Mitzrayim shloshet yamim, and there was choshech is darkness. Afela in modern Hebrew also means darkness. Let's see what it means in biblical Hebrew. It's one of those words again that I know from modern Hebrew, but probably means something slightly different in biblical Hebrew. So they translate here as darkness, gloominess, calamity.
Calamity. Oh.
But I don't know if that's the BDB also calamity. Figurative of calamity in Isaiah 8:22. Should we take a look at that? Isaiah 8:22. Let's see where it's used as calamity. Isaiah 8:22 says, Al eretz yabit, hini tzara, v'chashecha, me'uf, tzuka, v'afela, minudach. Okay. El Eretz Yabit, he will look upon the earth. I'm not sure, we should probably get context for this, but I'll just translate it. V'hine tzara, and behold, there will be trouble. Chashicha, darkness. Ma'uf, tzukah. Okay, so ma'uf, tzukah, they translate as dimness of anguish. I'm not sure what ma'uf is, but that's the way it's translated. The afela minudach, and they shall be, the nadeach means to push aside. They should be pushed aside to afela, to darkness. So basically, the main point here is that chashicha and afela are kind of used together. So they're two different forms of darkness.
Okay.
Now, like I just thought of something else. The first place in the Torah, where this darkness appears is this Genesis 1 verse 2, where the darkness was upon the surface of the deep.
Yeah.
It's almost like a palpable,
and the word there,
darkness as well. It's there is no light. It's just completely devoid of light at that point.
Interesting. Yeah, and the word there that's used is choshech. Choshech, al pnei tehom. It says the darkness was on the face of the abyss, or on the face of the depths. Yeah, on the face of the deep. Yeah. It's interesting. If it is, that's actually a very interesting point, because it may, the Torah is one of the things the more I study Torah, the more I notice is the Torah is very self-referential. It's constantly referring back to other things, other parts of itself, right? So there may be an implication in this choshech of that same choshech that's spoken about in Genesis 1. Maybe.
I mean, I'd heard someone that was very interesting say that the first time a word is used in the Torah, pick up your ears, because this is going to give you something important.
Yeah, we can actually even take a look at that. That's
referring to a primordial state. Yeah,
so dark that even the sun and the moon are not able to be seen at that point. Right? Because the sun and the moon are created on the fourth day.
That's right.
And I have a whole theory. I'm going to try to put the video back on, and if it gets bad again, I'll turn it back off. But I have a whole theory about Genesis 1, which I won't go into now. But when Bezrat Hashem, there I said Hashem, Bezrat Hashem, we get to studying Genesis 1 one of these days. I'll give you my entire theory, but it will just get us too far off track. But at any rate, at any rate, it says here. There it is. It's in Genesis 1:2, right? But the land was in they usually translate it as void and unformed, but it really is equivalent to the Greek concept of chaos. It was undifferentiated. And the darkness was on the surface of the depths, or on the surface of the abyss, however you want to translate it. And the spirit of Yehovah was wafting above the face of the water, the surface of the water. So there it is. So choshech, it's interesting, but that might actually be a hint or reference back to Egypt is being basically, it's being how can we say, knocked back into the Stone Age, right? Yeah. By these plagues.
Yeah.
Yeah, in America now too.
Yeah, little by little. And it's interesting because the plagues on America are also getting progressively worse, right?
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
Wise.
You look at this coronavirus, which, I still, either it's completely fake and it's just a flu, or it's an innocent virus. But you see the people going, the madness that's ensued over it. It might as well be the bubonic plague. It's being treated like the bubonic plague. So for all intents and purposes, it is the bubonic plague that's come on America, because that's the way these people are treating it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's a horrible plague, whether it's real or whether it's partially real or completely fake. It's just it's a horrible plague upon America, right? The way that it's ruptured the country. Yeah. it reminds me of another verse it's going to be in Leviticus 26. Let's see. Well, I'm not going to search for it. We get too far off track. But basically, it's the curses. If you disobey the Torah, and it says one of the curses is shigayon, insanity, craziness.
Oh.
You know? And
Oh.
Which verse is that? 26 what? 2?
I'll have to find it. Hold on a second. That's going to be Leviticus 26, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, okay. I think I better turn my camera off again because I think I'm having problems. So let's see. Leviticus. Where do we go? Oops. Leviticus. Oops. Genesis. Leviticus 26. And I'll grab it in English just to make it a little bit faster. Disobedience.
If you consider my
pride. Yeah.
It's number 16 by any chance?
But there's one place where it says, I will bring insanity upon you.
Insanity. Okay.
Then I would do the same to you as well.
No.
No.
No, there's one where it says, it literally uses the word shigayon, like mishigana. I'll make you mishigana.
Oh, wow.
Let me just find it. Yeah.
Shiguna.
Yeah. Yeah. Second. And delight Skyrim illumination. Those are westward sins. Can't find it right now. 1 second. But here's something here. Listen to this one. Verse Leviticus 26:36. As for those of you who are left, I will make their hearts so fearful in the lands of their enemies that the sound of a wind-blown leaf will put them to flight. They will run as though fleeing from the sword, and they will fall even though no one is pursuing them. If that describes the coronavirus to a T.
Coronavirus. There you go.
Wow.
Right? Sword, even though no one is pursuing them. Right? So he's gonna bring this
mass
psychosis on them, so that even a blowing leaf is gonna make them freak out. Right?
Yeah.
Blowing mask.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. But if I can find this one place where, yeah, really, if I could find this one place, it might be then Deuteronomy 24. It's the other place where the curses are brought. So let me see if I can find that. I'm gonna find it. 1 second.
All right, good.
No, not 24, 25. Yep. No, not 25, 26. No, 26, 27, maybe it's 28. 8. Blessings for disobedience. There it is. Okay. Curse. Eval in the Mount Gerizim thing with disease. Find it any second here. There it is. Madness. Deuteronomy 28:28. That's an easy one to remember.
Okay.
28.
Hebrew. English. The Lord will finish blindness and confusion of mind. Hebrew. Yeah. ייקחך יהוה בשיגעון, בעיוורון, ובתימהון לבב. So, I'll blow that up a little bit right there.
Yeah.
And there you see the third word in.
Yeah.
I'll make that flash.
The
mouse. There's your shigayon. Yeah, it's going to make you mishigana. And blindness. And then it says, but timahon levav. So timahon would be like confusion of the heart, or yeah. So it just goes to show, and I think there's an old phrase that I've quoted many times, so I'm not sure what the source of the phrase is, that I think it was let me just find it. Those who God wishes to destroy. There it is. Whom the gods would destroy, they first make mad.
Yeah, there you go. That was
sometimes given in Latin as quos Dios vult perdere, Dios demetat.
He first deprives
It's
of
been used in
reason.
English literature since at least the 17th century. Yeah,
That's so true today. So true.
Wow.
Mhm.
It was Longfellow. Oh, okay.
Mask of Pandora.
Mm-hmm. Later appears in Longfellow's poem, "The Mask of Pandora." I think it says here. Let's see the history, classical origins. An early version of the phrase "whom the gods would destroy" appears in verses 620 to 623 of Sophocles' play Antigone. Evil appears as good in the minds of those whom God leads to destruction. Wow.
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 Oh, wow. Oh, my word.
That's beautiful.
Isn't that true for today? Wow.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Crazy world.
A form closer to the modern version is found in Procopius Vandal Wars. I'm not going to attempt the Greek because my Greek is not perfect. Who God, whenever he purposes that some adversity shall befall a man, touches first his reason.
Wow. That's happened to Pharaoh.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Explicitly, right? And it's interesting that if you look at this phrase here, if you look at this phrase, it says that it's God acting on his reason. It's not just that he goes crazy. God is making him crazy. God makes him go crazy, right?
Absolutely.
And we see that in Exodus, it
hardens his heart.
doesn't say always, but most of the time it says God hardened Pharaoh's heart, or God made Pharaoh's heart heavy. It's God doing it. He's touching his reason, right? He's playing with his own sanity, making him go crazy in order to destroy him. It's maybe the classic example of this, right?
Classic example.
Isn't it
incredible?
just?
Yeah, I mean, and even his own Pharaoh's own servants didn't trust his wisdom anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. His own servants are now rebelling. His servants can see the truth, but he can't see the truth, and will never see the truth until he's destroyed.
Never.
Yeah.
Yep.
Incredible.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
The lesson to learn: if one act of defiance and disobedience starts to close the door on our own reasoning powers.
Mm-hmm. And where is that from?
No, I was just saying that as an aside.
Oh, yeah.
You see people that eventually end up stark raving mad is from one sin that they commit and they refuse to change, and they continue to go down that road to where they're sleeping under cars on the road. I mean, people here in Colombia, we see so many of these people that are just full of vice. They've been doing drugs for so many years, and they're now sleeping in the middle of the street with a part of a door over them. And they're just crazy. They've lost their minds.
Yeah. Yep. To another, and the whole thing snowballs.
Yeah.
Snowballs. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It grows. Problems can grow exponentially. You know.
That's right.
And it's interesting that my background is math and computers, so I always like to bring mathematics or science analogies. Sorry, I don't know. Ben, you have a scientific background, right?
No, not really.
Engineering.
I'm an engineer.
What's that?
I'm an engineer.
Well, that's a scientific background for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
My dad's an engineer too, as well. Retired. Yeah. What kind of engineer are you?
Aviation.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
meaning like aerospace engineering, or you mean like
I
technician?
started out in
Like
71, and I started out in 71 in the with the Royal Air Force, and I was a mechanic for years and years, and I've just been involved with airplanes all my life.
No kidding. Do you have your pilot's license?
No,
Oh,
they
okay.
bend them and I mend them.
Got him. I'm one of the benders because I got my I actually got my private pilot's license in 2017.
Wow.
One of the best things I ever did. Yeah, it was amazing.
Oh, good for you. You know, it's something I've often thought I should do, but I don't know. I flew for many years as a flight mechanic. It's so boring flying. People talk about how exhilarating it is, but to me, once you've seen 10 clouds, you've seen them all. You know.
I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying because you're actually just as a pilot, especially on a let's say a general aviation plane, especially you're stuck in that cabin for hours. If you have to go to the bathroom, you're out of luck.
Oh yeah, exactly. You know, I was involved with cargo. I was never passenger aircraft. I couldn't stomach that. But honestly, it was so boring. I can remember one flight we did during the Gulf War. I flew from Stansted in London to Curacao, just north of Venezuela. And it was about a 24-hour flight in a C-130.
Yeah.
It was, and people used to say, "Oh wow, how exciting flying in the Gulf War!" And no, it wasn't. The only time it got exciting was when we got a bullet hole come through the fuselage, and that's a bit exciting.
Oh, God.
But other than that, it was just hour after hour of boredom.
Yeah.
You know, we used to step out with the pilots. They'd say, "Oh, you come and sit here and fly for a while, and we're going to have a nap." So we it was simple enough.
I totally understand that. But so you were on the planes, in other words, as a mechanic, in case there was a mechanical problem to fix that?
Yeah, I flew with the airplane, and I did about 10 years in Africa, and we flew all over Africa doing relief work, and that side of it was interesting, but the actual flying side of it was it was just monotony.
Right. Yeah, I can understand that. I can totally understand that. And the pilots too. I mean, what did they also? I mean, these days with autopilot, they don't really have much to do once they're up in altitude. They just basically sleep, I guess. I guess one of them has to stay awake.
I finished off a couple of years ago working on 747s and 787s, and those things. I mean, they don't fly them at all. They just punch in numbers into a computer, and that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think even some of the advanced ones, I guess, like the 787.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think the recent models of 747, 780s, whatever, recent models, they don't even do the landings anymore. They just punch the landing. They just punch the the landing pattern into the into the computer, and then it basically lands the plane for them.
That's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. Please, I'm not trying to take away from their skill or anything. Obviously, if something goes wrong, somebody's got to fly the thing, and
right.
By and large, they get paid for doing nothing. They get paid for being and
they get paid really well. They get paid really well. They get paid really well for doing nothing.
Yeah, they do. I mean, $250,000 for being a first officer on a 747, and all you do is punch
747 or something. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, into the computer, and and usually,
I read an article actually
that go wrong with the computers. There's an accident.
Exactly what I was going to say. I read an article. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go on.
No, go ahead.
Oh,
I was going to say that.
I read an article yesterday that a lot of these pilots that are coming back after COVID layoffs, they're making such basic mistakes, and it's got to be the captains. They're leaving the parking brake on and trying to take off with the parking brake on. No, I'm like, you with all the checklists that you've got, you haven't taken the parking brake off. Oh my God! And I'm flying with you.
Because they don't look at the checklists anymore because they think they have them memorized.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can remember flying into places. Joburg, especially. Joburg had a parallel runway and a taxiway, and I can remember we're going in. It's early in the morning, and the sun's shining right in the flight deck, and I'm looking, and I'm thinking, he's going to land on.
I already know what you're going to say.
And
no! Oh my God, that's dangerous.
Yeah, I said to him, dangerous. You're going to land on the taxiway, and he said, No. He said, that's the road.
Oh my God.
I said, you better get your ass over there. And he suddenly realized that I was right. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Oh my gosh! Wow. Yeah. At any rate, aviation. Okay. All right. So back to Torah, I guess.
Yeah.
So how do we get into this again?
That is something important.
We're talking about insanity and people being made insane. So, all right. Okay, and we were in, I guess, Exodus 10:22.
We're in the
end of chapter
darkness
10.
That you could feel.
Yeah.
So let's go back to that. Yeah. So, all right, we did verse 22. Verse 23, Lo ra'u ish et hav velo qamu. L'chol bnei Israel haya or b'moshavtam. No, b'moshvotam. Okay, so no person saw his, literally says his brother, but no person saw his fellow. And no person got up from his place for 3 days. But for all the children of Israel, there was light in their settlements, in their habitations. So it's interesting here. I think there's a grammatical point to be made here, by the way, which is kind of important. Which is, it says here, lo ra'u ish et echav, which means literally no person saw his, I'll just say, fellow man, okay? But the ra'u is the plural, is in the plural past tense. It's the third person plural in the past tense of lir'ot, to see. But the subject is not plural. The subject is singular. It's ish. Okay. So, really, if we were to hold true to the grammatical rules of Hebrew, it should say lo ra'a ish et echav. A person did not see his fellow man. But really, it says something more along the lines of no person saw their fellow man, because the verb is in the
Plural.
plural. So the point being here that we see a lot of times in the Torah that the verb does not always match up in number, and sometimes in gender with the subject as technically it should. In this case, I think there's a good explanation for it, because it's talking about all the people, right? All the people did not see their fellow men, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it doesn't say. It should say then velo ra'u anashim et achehem. That would be, again, grammatically correct. If we wanted to keep the ra'u, which is they saw, third person past plural, then it should say something like lo ra'u anashim, people, et achehem, their fellow men, right? Everything should be in plural. But we have the verb in plural, and we have the subject and the object in the singular. So technically speaking, it would be incorrect. But again, it just goes to show that this idea of Hebrew having to stick to strict grammatical rules does not always hold true in the Torah. And sometimes, as in this case, there are reasons where, let's say, you're matching a singular subject with a plural verb, and in this case, it's because it's speaking about all the people, even though it's using the singular word ish, right? It's really, ish is a stand-in for all of the people, right? It's not speaking about one person; it's speaking about all the people, and therefore the plural verb rather than the singular verb is used. Okay.
A bit like the word
this
nobody.
kind of thing nobody goes, right? Nobody goes. We don't see nobody go. What's that?
Well, it's like in English saying nobody could see their brother. Well,
yeah,
it's like even though it's in the Hebrew is clear that it's using ish, but the sense of it is more like everybody, nobody
right.
could see their brother.
Absolutely, exactly. That's exactly right. Lo ra'u ish. Yeah, exactly. So, this is why it's the grammaticalization, I guess you could say, or the creation of formal grammars for Hebrew did not really occur until the Middle Ages.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so so when they tried to create these formal grammars, then these exceptions are seen as mistakes, or seen as holding kind of a secret knowledge. Again, we could check what Rashi sees. I bet he picks up on it and says something stupid. But of course, every time I says something stupid, he says something reasonable. But it's according to strict grammatical rules, this is incorrect. And so a lot of times the rabbinical commentators will pick up and say, "Oh, there's secret knowledge." I can give you a classic example, which we spoke about last week, which was the plague of the frogs. And it says frogs will cover Egypt, and then it says and out of the water came, and then it uses hatzvardea. It uses a singular, meaning the frog. And then Rashi, quoting a midrash, says, "Well, what happened is one frog came out, and then it divided up into 1,000,000 frogs, and magically, broke up into 1,000,000 frogs and covered the land of Egypt." Right? Because they're picking up on what seem like grammatical inconsistencies. But the point of the matter is the Torah is not always grammatically consistent, and it's a mistake to kind of retroactively kind of force it into the framework of being grammatically consistent in the sense of following all the rules of a formal grammar for the Hebrew language, right?
Okay.
So see what Rashi says. This is verse 23. Let's see if he says anything. No, I think he doesn't say anything actually. There's verse 24. Well, sometimes the verses are off. Oh, okay, yeah. It does say Shelo ra'u ish et achiv. Otan gimel yamim. Again, I'll go in the English. Let's see if he says anything. No man rose from his place. One who happened to be sitting when the second period of darkness began was unable to rise, and one who was then standing was unable to sit down. Okay, whatever. And why did he bring darkness upon them? Because there were wicked people among the Israelites of that generation who had no desire to leave Egypt, and these died during the 3 days of darkness, so the Egyptians might not see their destruction and say, "These Israelites too have been stricken as we have." Okay, a bunch of nonsense. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. Okay, so he doesn't mention.
Right.
He doesn't mention anything about the grammatical inconsistency. I wonder if Robert Alter does. Let's take a look what he has to say. 23. No one saw, no one rose. Avraham ibn Ezra and Nachmanides both shrewdly infer that this total incapacity through darkness would logically have had to include the disabling of candlelight as well as sunlight, another manifestation of the miraculous character of the event. Okay, fair enough. Okay, so he doesn't really say anything much about it either. Okay, but just to point out that seeming grammatical inconsistency, which is really not a grammatical inconsistency because the Torah doesn't always hold to the same grammatical standards that later grammaticians try to place on the language. So at any rate, okay, so that's verse 23. Maybe we'll go for about another 20 minutes and then call it a day. How does that sound?
Yeah,
Sounds good. Yep.
I just had a thought. I don't know. The ninth plague, darkness, isn't it interesting? That came right before the death of the firstborn. The darkness signifies death as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like a precursor to what's going to happen. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, I hear what you're saying. And
what I'm trying to get to, I guess, is the other plagues. Nothing led up to the next plague. You know, they were all individual, and then you got the darkness, and he's saying, you know, there's going to be a darkness that you won't be able to fix. Yeah. And then the next plague is, of course, the death of the firstborn.
Yeah, I hear.
Interesting too here at the end of that where it says that there was light in the dwellings. I mean, it didn't mean that there was no night. It's just that this suffocating presence of darkness was not there. It was some kind of supernatural thing that, I mean, obviously they had nightfall, but they had candles and things to, you would think that they were able to light their dwellings, the children of Israel, but the Egyptians weren't able to even light a candle. It was so dark. Right.
Which makes me think, even though Robert Alter doesn't agree with this idea, that there was actually something in the air which prevented, you know, which was able to be felt and which filtered out the light, you know, which didn't even allow the light to pass through from even nearby.
Yep.
Right. Because you could see, okay, so a candle, maybe you can light a candle, and who knows, maybe even put the candle out. It was so thick, you know, whatever it was in the air. But let's say even the candle was lit. You know, you can imagine that, you know, if it's like a thick fog, right? Even if you put your headlights on in a thick fog, you can't see a thing. So much so that on a really thick fog, you even have to pull over to the side of the road. You know, you can't you're not going to move, right, until the fog passes.
Exactly.
So it doesn't matter that you have
in science where light is bent, where you cannot even have light. It's it seems like I've studied years ago about when there's a magnetic force or something where the light couldn't even exist.
Well, there's maybe you're talking about the black holes,
Right.
where so the actually I was just listening to a lecture on this last night, but in a black hole, the gravitational force is so strong that the escape velocity, which is the velocity required to escape the gravitational pull of an object, is greater than the speed of light. You actually would have to travel faster than the speed of light to escape the gravitational pull of a black hole. So light itself is actually not able to escape the gravitational pull of a black hole, and that's why black holes are invisible from the outside.
Yeah. Right. So and this presence that didn't allow them to even get up out of their chairs, there was something there. There was something there that was not allowing the light to come in.
Yeah. Or was not allowing the light to propagate very far, right?
Yeah.
It was so thick, you could picture like a thick, give another analogy. Let's say you're in smoke, right? Let's say, God forbid you're in a fire and there's thick smoke. It wouldn't matter if you had a candle or a flashlight or anything. You wouldn't be able to move, right? You'd just be groping around in the darkness.
That's right.
Yeah. So something like that, whatever it was, you could think of it as maybe a thick smoke or something like that was covered the entire land of Egypt,
Wow. Incredible.
So, but it really, I mean, the more you think, that's why it's great to analyze this stuff and have discussions about it, because the more you think about it, if you use the analogy of a thick smoke, you could really understand why these people could not move for 3 days, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, smoke, or like you said, the mist, and you're driving your car in the fog, and you're totally helpless. Totally.
Right. Absolutely. And turning on the lights turning on the headlights at that point makes it even worse. Right? If you turn on the brights.
Yeah, exactly.
Just reflects off the darkness in the air.
Wow. Yeah.
Yep. So it was whatever it was some kind of very, very intense darkness, far beyond what we experience at night. That's clear, right?
Yeah.
I think thinking of it as like thick smoke is a good analogy, because that would explain, something like that would explain how they couldn't even move from where they were. They couldn't even get around. And just imagine how terrifying that must be to have this, thick smoke covering your entire land, covering your house, and you can't even move for 3 days, 3 whole days. You're just stuck in this thick smoke. So it really was a pretty serious plague.
Pretty serious, yeah.
And one thing we notice about the plagues is they get progressively worse. Yeah. One thing we notice about the plagues is they get progressively worse. There's a progression. Absolutely. They start out kind of simple, and then they get worse and worse until the whole place is basically ransacked. So So all right, let's see verse okay, verse 24. Waykrap Pharaoh el Moshe. Now Pharaoh calls to Moshe. Yomer lechu ivdu et Yehovah rak tzontchem bekarchem yutzag gam tachem yelech imachem. So finally he relents, because in the case of the we could check it out afterwards, but in the previous, where was it? I'd have to find it. Yeah, in the previous plague, Pharaoh says, don't bring your children along. And we'll check that out in a second, but let me just translate this. So now he finally relents. He says, bring your children along, okay? עבדו את יהוה רק צאנכם ובקרכם יוצג גם טפכם ילך עמכם.
And also you
children to go.
Yeah.
So I think he's saying yutzag means to be presented, but I'm not. Let's see here. Sometimes yutzag. I guess he's saying should yutzag should be left behind. Let's get an English translation on that one. That's 24. Check the NIV for a second. So the NIV says, only leave your flocks and herds behind. So now he's also still making conditions.
He's still making rules.
Yeah, he's still he's still the boss in his eyes. He's still trying to hang on. He's still trying to hang on to whatever little little bit he has left of his own self-esteem and ego. He's still he's still playing. He's still thinking he's the boss. He still gets to lay down the law.
Yep, you're gonna see. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Moses is like, no way, you're gonna even give us your offerings.
Right, but at this point, realize it's symbolic, right? It's like it's complete capitulation, but he's got to lay down the law a little bit just to symbolically show that he's still the boss. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's really, he has been driven crazy by this whole thing to the point where he doesn't know what to do, and he's somehow he realizes he's completely defeated, but he's still got to hang on to some shred of his former self by still making conditions for the Israelites.
Mm-hmm. That's right. He's still got to be the boss. Yeah.
Still got to be the boss. Once the boss, always the boss, right? He can't give it up quite yet. In his eyes, Egypt is still the best. His gods are still the best. He's a god. Nothing has happened to Egypt. Everything's fine. These people are not going to go. They're still my slaves. They're still my servants, like they've always been. His whole world is crumbling. It's almost like Hitler, actually. It's really almost, it's like
almost like Fauci.
Like Fauci. Well, Fauci hasn't gotten his plagues yet, but he will. Don't worry.
He will.
He will. But it is kind of like, it's kind of like Hitler in a certain sense, right? Hitler's entire world was crumbling around him, and yet he basically refused to admit it. If I remember correctly, I'm trying to think of all the events, but again, it was kind of his hubris and arrogance which led him to his defeat. The Russians were already inside Berlin. The Americans were closing in on Berlin. Whatever the case was, and he it wasn't until the last moments that he realized that's all lost, and even then he refused to relent. He wasn't going to be taken alive. He committed suicide. He was the boss. He wanted to be the boss until the end, even as his world was falling apart all around him. It's kind of the same thing here,
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So he's still making laws. So okay, now your children can go, but leave your flocks here. Which is interesting, because if we go back to the previous plague, it was just the opposite, where it says, let me just find it here.
Leave your children there.
Yeah, leave your children. He basically says you don't have to take your children, because they're not going to be sacrificing. So the fact that you want to take your children is proof that you're up to no good. That you've got you're playing some monkey business, because your children don't need to go with you. Yeah, take your flocks, because you need to sacrifice them to your God. This Yehovah, who I'm starting, now I've kind of gotten to know him a little bit, and I'm not, I don't really like him very much, but okay. I'm not a big fan at this point, but but okay, I understand you've got to take your flocks. I'll let you do that, but your children, wait, if you're taking your children, you're up to something, because you don't need to take your children. Children don't bring sacrifices.
Yeah.
Coming back. Some societies, they are the sacrifices. But let's find that for a second. Let's try. Wait, let me see if that's good. Before that, yeah. So we go to Exodus 10:10. Exodus 10:9, we can start in Yomer. So this is the locusts. Yomer Moshe. Okay, so in verse 8, Pharaoh says, "Who's going to go out to the desert? Who's going with you?" And in verse 9, Moshe says, "V'yomer Moshe b'na'arenu u'b'ziknenu nelech b'vanenu u'b'notenu u'b'tzonenu u'b'karenu nelech ki chag Yehovah lanu." And he says in verse 9, Moshe said, "Our young men, our youths, our old people, our young people, and our old people will go. Our sons and our daughters will go. Our flocks and our herds will go." Because it is a festival is a festival for us to Yehovah. And then verse 10, Pharaoh says, this is Exodus 10:10, Yomer aleim yehi chen. Pharaoh says, okay, let it be. Yoah imachem, and may God be with you. May Yoah be with you. And then he immediately contradicts himself, and I was discussing it this morning, so I won't go into detail, but if I send you, and your little ones, I see that you have evil intentions. You have evil is before your faces. But I think the implication there is you're up to no good, right?
Yeah.
So then he says in verse 11, Lochen, so it should not be so. Lechuna hagvarim, let only the adult males go. Let you do et Yehovah and serve Yehovah. Ki otah atem mivakshim, because that is what you're requesting, to serve Yehovah. V'yigaresh otam et penei Paro, and then he sent them away. So in the previous one, he's saying, okay, let just your adult males go, your gvarim, okay, but not the children. And okay, I guess it's not clear if he's acceding to the request of allowing the flocks to go. So that could be played either way. But certainly, what he's saying is that the little ones cannot go. The little children, only the adults should go. Right. So now he gives another concession. In where was it? In verse, and in verse 24. And now he's saying even the children can go. Gam tapchem yelechim imachem. Also, your children can go, but the flocks and the herds, basically the sheep and the cows, have to stay behind. So one more concession, but he's still making conditions. Okay, so verse 25. Yomer Moshe gam ata titen biyadenu zvachim ve'olot ve'asinu liYehovah Eloheinu. And I think what it's saying there is Moshe saying, are you also going to give us sacrifices for us to bring to our God? I mean, if he's saying, well, if we don't bring these sacrifices, then what are we going to sacrifice to our God? Basically, he's saying, what, we're going to show up to our God empty-handed. Are you going to give us the sacrifices that we should bring to our God? Right? And then he says. And it's interesting that whenever Moshe uses logic to Pharaoh, he always the whole thing is basically meant to be a giant, mind game with Pharaoh, but he always presents it in logical senses. God and Moshe are completely playing with this guy, right? So he's trying to present the logical argument, but really what he's doing is what the subtext here is he's saying, no, you don't lay down the law. Yehovah lays down. We lay down the law. We're the boss, not you, right? But he presents it as if
we're laying down the law.
But he presents it as if he's presenting logical arguments to Pharaoh. Like he's saying, are you going to give us sacrifices? If we don't bring our sheep and our cows, how are we going to sacrifice to our God? You're going to give us the sacrifices? And then he says in verse 26,
of course he wouldn't, because of they were their minor deities.
Of course, yeah, exactly. That's right. Especially, right, we know that Yosef says to Yaakov when he comes down to Egypt, he says, "Tell Pharaoh that you and your fathers have been shepherds, because it's an abomination to Egypt, and so Pharaoh will tell you to settle far away in the land of Goshen." Right. Well, so apparently, sheep at the very least, and I guess cows as well, were somehow or another some kind of abomination to Egypt, right? At least for bringing sacrifices. Mm-hmm. So, but he always presents it with a seemingly logical argument, but it's just a fake, right? It's just a game that Moshe is playing. Really, what because he can't come right out and say, how can I'm trying to think of an analogy. It happens all the time in Israel and in the Middle East, where it's like this, the people will pretend, they'll feign that they, feign interest in you, or feign that they, concern for you, but really they're really thinking about themselves. I can't think of an example offhand. Like, let's say you go to let me think of just make up an example. You go to the shuk, right? And you guys went to the shuk, I'm sure, plenty of times, right?
Oh, yeah.
and you say, and you say to the guy, oh, I don't know, I'd like this fresh fish over here, and he has some old fish from 3 days ago that he wants to get rid of, and he says, should I give you this? I care about you, so I will give you this special fish, from 3 days ago, as if it's in your interest, right? When it's really, I don't know. It's a bad example. I can't think of a good example offhand. But basically, Moshe is
that's pretty good. That really hits it on the head. But that's what they do. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna do you a big favor. Yeah, right.
Yeah. My friend, I have a big favor for you. Beautiful fish. And you're like, look, why is the head turning green? Oh, this is special green-headed fish for you, my friend. Special for you.
Yeah.
It's about you and how much I'm concerned.
For you.
Yes, it's a very special bacteria that cannot be found anywhere else but special green fish head. Just for you, my friend. I saved this fish 3 days for you, my brother.
My brother. Yeah, right.
Right. So, he's couching it in these polite terms, but really the subtext here is, no, you're not the boss, pal. I'm the boss, right? Or Yehovah's the boss. So, verse 26. Also, our livestock will go with us. Lo tishaer parsa, and not even and I love this phrase. Parsa is a hoof. It's the same word that's used when it speaks about kosher animals having split hooves.
Right.
Yeah. So not even a hoof will remain. Because from them, from our livestock, we will take animals to worship or to do service to Yehovah Eloheinu, our God. And we don't know. Literally, it says we don't know what we will. Basically, I'll paraphrase it. We don't know which animals we're going to need to sacrifice to Yehovah until we get there. So again, Moshe is kind of trying to phrase things in logical terms. You know what I mean? To try to pretend like he's appealing to Pharaoh's logic, right? But of course, he's playing with Pharaoh like a trapped mouse, like a trapped animal.
Yeah.
Oh, he's loving it too. I could just picture Moshe having the best time doing this. Quite frankly, just playing with this arrogant ass. Just watching him, slowly break down his almost like if they do an interrogation, watching him slowly break down his psyche until he's just a mumbling mass of pathetic flesh. So verse 27, but Yehovah hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he did not wish to let them go. And verse 28, and Pharaoh says to him, go from me, get out of here. And I love this phrase. Oh, this is one of my favorites in the Exodus story. And then Pharaoh says, get out of here. He says, go from me, and be careful not to see my face again, because on the day I see you, on the day you see my face, you will die. In other words, if I see you again, you're dead meat, right? It's all this, it's like a high school schoolyard, right?
Yeah.
All over again. Right? And I love this response. I love this response of Moshe. And he says, "V'yomer Moshe ken dibarta." You've spoken wisely, or you've spoken correctly. Lo osif od reot panecha. I will never see your face again. And that's the last time that Moshe ever sees Pharaoh.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah.
Doesn't Pharaoh send out after him to tell him to get out after the firstborn is killed? But he didn't.
Let's see. So we have on the plague of the firstborn is told. I think no. It just let's see here. If it would be right here. No. So he never sees V'yomer Moshe ko amar Yehovah chatzot halayla. Wait a second. V10. You know what?
He calls in chapter 12, verse 31, he calls to Moses and Aaron and says, rise up and go out from among my people, even you and the children of Israel. Whether he did it through a servant or what.
Right. Yeah, I guess
He
it was done
says,
through
go
a
and bless me as well, and asking for a blessing now.
Right. So maybe. יקרא למשה, yeah, say in verse 31. יקרא למשה לאהרון לילה ויאמר קומו צאו מתוך עמי גם אתם גם בני ישראל לכו עבדו את יהוה כדברכם. גם סוף blah blah blah. Okay. So maybe he did speak directly at that point to Moshe and Aaron. All right, we'll keep that in mind. For some reason, I'd always remembered that was the last contact that Moshe had with Pharaoh. But let's keep that in mind. Again, I think maybe it was done at that point through messengers. Yeah.
It's possible that, I mean, if he was so grief-stricken after losing his son, he probably wouldn't want to see Moshe. He probably sent a message and said, Just get out of here. Just go.
Right. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
All right, we'll keep that as a question mark.
We'll keep that.
Yeah.
That's a good ending point.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, that is a good ending point. So you guys want to call it a day?
I think so.
It's been wonderful.
Right. It's great. We'll look forward to this.
Yep. Again, don't feel like I love it when you guys show up. Don't feel like if you have something else to do that you have to. But
we've been looking forward to it a lot. It's just that we've been in a very difficult situation, living with a Catholic lady with idols all over the house and noise everywhere. And we finally got a little Airbnb up in the mountains, and we're so happy to be able to be free.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. So you guys are staying in the Airbnb for how long?
Probably until Tuesday. Monday is a holiday.
Okay.
Then we've been given the word that our national ID, my husband's visa, which he had to get the visa permanent retirement visa for us to live here and do banking and everything. So that's come through. It's been approved by the government, so it went record time. We really got it done quickly.
Oh, wow.
So go back and get that taken care of, buy ourselves a Jeep or whatever, and then we're on our own.
Excellent. And are you guys planning to buy a house or land? I think you said, right?
We are still debating. If we find the right situation, we will.
Right.
We may rent for 6 months while we look around.
Right.
That's a good idea. It's not smart to just jump out and grab something without knowing what's going on.
Sure. Yeah, you got to get the lay of the land for a while first.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm.
For sure, where we are is very beautiful. It's incredibly beautiful, and
this is how Israel should be. I tell you.
Yeah, really.
All the fruit trees, all the crops, everything here. Oh, just beautiful climate too. Oh.
Wow. And it's safe. It's safe where you guys are. I know that's such a stereotype of Colombia, but whenever I think of Colombia, I just think of kidnappings and drug lords, and
Watch the old drug running movies.
Yeah, but it's safe up in the mountains where you guys are.
Oh yeah,
it's as safe here as anywhere. I mean,
it's a big coffee growing area.
Oh wow, I'm jealous. Can you guys buy farmers?
A lot of farmers here. Yeah.
Oh wow. Oh my gosh, I'm jealous.
We'll send pictures.
Come and see us. Come and see us.
Maybe one of these days. Why not?
Yeah. Get your degree out the way and come over and see us. And make a holiday.
I will keep that in mind.
All right. God bless.
All right, guys. So Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Many thanks
as
always. And
my pleasure.
It's a
all
pleasure.
Right. So we'll see you hopefully again next week. So Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov. Well, it's still Shabbat there. So Shabbat Shalom. Okay. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye. All right. I think I'm going to go on myself for a little while longer. I'll just read.
In the
Okay.
background?
Well,
Okay.
Yep, but you guys,
Let it
see ya.
go. We'll
Yeah,
just let
yeah,
it
you
run
could
in
just.
the background.
we'll just
Oh, yeah, sure. If you want to do that, or if you want to turn it off, whatever you want to
no.
do. Okay.
That's fine. We'll
Okay.
leave you going in the background while we get our lunch made.
Okay, just do me a favor. Could you put the? Oh, I can mute it from here. I'll just mute your guys' microphone. Okay.
Perfect. That's great.
All right. Done. Okay, so, oops, I forgot to put this back up now. That's the way I should be looking at it. All righty. So, Yomer Moshe Ko Amar Yehovah, the Ish Moshe Gadon, blah blah blah. Where were we? No, the wrong one. I have to go back to Exodus 10. Okay. So, chapter 11. ויאמר יהוה אל משה, עוד נגע אחד אביא על פרעה. Yehovah said to Moshe, one more plague I will bring upon Paro, Ya'al Mitzrayim, and upon Egypt. And it's interesting here that it doesn't say, usually it says al Paro, Ya'al Avada, Ya'al Mitzrayim, on Paro and on his servants and on Egypt, on his, we should say maybe his officers or something like that, his assistants, his court. But it doesn't say that here. And maybe that's because we saw in one of the previous plagues that the Avadim protested to Pharaoh saying, enough, let these people go. So it doesn't mention the Avadim here, maybe for that reason. Bit of speculation. We'd have to make an assumption there, but fair enough. Afterwards, he shall send you mizeh, out of here. Kishalcho kala garesh. Yigaresh etchem mizeh. And when he sends you, he will completely, kala is from lichlot, to finish off, or to completely finish. Garesh yigaresh etchem mizeh. I'd like to get a couple of English translations on this verse here, specifically on this phrase. Kishalcho kala garesh yigaresh etchem mizeh. So again, that's a little bit difficult to parse. Let's start with the NIV, which I like, believe it or not. A lot of people criticize the NIV. I happen to like it. After that, he will let you go from here, and when he does, he will drive you out completely. So that's the word kala, means like call, completely. In fact, let's look at this word kala. Yeah, completion, complete destruction, consumption, annihilation. Genesis 18:21. Let me open a different tab. So this is with Sodom and Gomorrah. Erdena wa ere ki ta'akata haba'a elai asu kala imlo idda'a. So we have that same. So kala seems to be an adverb in this case. Altogether, which they have done completely or altogether. Erdana, I will certainly go down, or I will verily go down. And I will see if, according to its cry, speaking about the cry of Sodom and Amorah, Sodom and Gomorrah, haba'a elai, that has come to me. In other words, the cry up to heaven of all the people suffering under Sodom and Gomorrah. Asu kala wa imlo eda'a. If they have completely done, if they have done altogether, and if not, I will know. So here's that word kala, altogether. It's an adverb that is modifying the verb asu, that they did. They did completely, or they did altogether. Okay, that's Genesis 18:21. Let's look at another use of the word. Exodus 11:1, that's ours. 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 33. So this is the story when David is running from Shaul is out to get David, and Shaul is wondering why David has not come to his table to eat, and now Jonathan, Shaul's son, is sent out to give a symbol, a sign to David, whether Shaul is out to get him or not. Oh, I just love this story. Yatel Shaul et Achani. Oh, I'm sorry. No, it's not that. Okay, no. This is I think when Shaul throws a I think he throws a I think he's at the table. He's already gone crazy, and he throws a javelin like into the wall. Okay. Yatel Shaul et Achanit, and Shaul, Saul, cast is the English word here, threw a javelin upon him, la'akoto, to smite him, v'yeda Yehonatan. And Yonatan knew, he kala, he me'im aviv, lahamit et David. So Jonathan knew, he kala, he me'im aviv. So kalahi ma'im aviv, so that it was definitely, again, I guess we could say that the word kala means completely, entirely. Ki kalahi ma'im aviv, that it was entirely, that in the understood word there is entirely decided. Hi me'im aviv lamit et David, that it had been entirely decided, completely decided, fully decided by his father. Again, the word decided is not explicitly there, it's implicit. Me'im aviv lamit et David, that to kill David. Okay, fair enough. Let's look at another one. 2 Chronicles 12:2. It says, "Ba'ichan'o shab mimenu, af Yehoah velo lashchit lichala." So lashchit lichala altogether. Again, it's used as an adverb. Lichala, two altogether. V'gam b'Yehuda hayat dvarim tovim, and also in Yehuda there were good things. Okay, so again, it's used as an adverb. So basically, kala seems to be an adverb, which means altogether, completely, entirely. Let's look at one more. And that's in Nehemiah 9:31. So this is the prayer that Nehemiah renders to Yehovah. U'barachamecha rabim lo asitem kala v'lo azavtem ki el hanun v'rachum ata. And in your mercy, in your great mercy, lo asitem, lo is asitam, you did not make them, you did not finish them off completely, basically. You did not do with them completely. I'll translate that as you did not finish them off completely. V'lo azavtem, and you did lo azavtam, and you did not abandon them, ki el hanun v'rachum ata, because you are a kind and merciful God. So again, completely. So that's what this word is. Kala is an adverb, which means completely. It's basically an adverb. Here it says part of speech, noun feminine. But even here it's used as an adverb, entirely, right? Ly is a sign of an adverb. Lali, 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 get your adverbs here. Yes, you can turn that on, sweetheart. Yeah, we'll eat soon. I'm going to finish the study in just a little while. So, okay, let's see what the BDB says. It also says a noun, complete destruction, completion. Is Lavi inside, or where is he? Is he in the sunroom? He's right there, okay. You can turn on the light here. You can turn on the light. What? That's fine. He could stay in now. He could stay in. Okay. Completion, but only as an adverb, and dubious completely altogether. So it does say as an adverb. So it's used as an adverb. You want to turn on that light too? As you wish. I don't care either way. Okay, so we get an idea. I'll call it an adverb, meaning completely or totally or entirely. Alrighty. So, so where were we? In Exodus 11. So, getting back to Exodus 11. So, one more plot, a plague. Mitzrayim acharechen. Afterwards, yishalach etchem mizeh. He will send you away from here. Will get you out of here. Will let you go from here. Mizeh literally means from this, but here is the implication. Kishalcho, as he sends you, or when he sends you. Kala garesh yigaresh etchem mizeh. He will completely. So now we understand the word kala as an adverb completely. So let's see something. Yeah. So I want to see the punctuation marks on it. Kala garesh yigaresh etchem mizeh. He will completely. And then it uses garesh yigaresh, which again the doubling is always an emphasis. Garesh yigaresh, he will completely, and how could we translate this? He will verily completely send you out of here. It's a real double emphasis. Kala and garesh yigaresh. Okay, so we have two forms of emphasis. One, the kala, completely, and then we have the garesh yigaresh, which is the doubling of the word. By the way, ligaresh means to expel or to send away. It's the same thing that's is used in modern Hebrew to mean divorce. To ligaresh means to divorce. So he will completely chase you away, completely expel you from here. So it's emphasized in two different ways. I mean, he really wants to get rid of the Israelites at this point. Or he will want to get rid of the Israelites after this last plague. Okay. Verse 2, Daber na be'aznei ha'am. So now he's speaking to Moshe, and he says, speak in the ears of the people, basically tell the people of Israel, Vishalu ish me'et re'ehu, that each person, and here we have again a mismatch, just like we saw before, Ra'ush ish et echav, each person, lo ra'u ish et echav, no person saw his fellow man, and the subject was singular, and the verb was plural. We have the same thing here. Vayishalu ish me'et re'ehu. We have a verb which is in the plural. Literally, vayishalu. The vav is what's called the vav hipuch. Hipuch, the conversive verb, the conversive vav, which changes basically changes the future into the past while leaving it in the imperfect form. So let's ignore the vav for a second. Yishalu would be they shall request or they shall ask. In this case, it's not the conversive vav because it will be in the future. Okay, vayishalu, and so it's the vav is, forget what I said about it being the vav hipuch, the conversive vav, which changes the tense from past to present to future, future to past. Actually, from imperfect to perfect or perfect to imperfect. This is just a regular vav, so it means and. Yishalu means they shall ask. It's the third person plural future form of the verb sha'al, to ask or request or borrow. But the subject is the verb is in the plural form, subject is in the singular form. Exactly what we saw before, which you were mentioning with Ben and Ariella, that the verb was in the plural form. Now the subject was in the singular form, but the reason here is obviously that ish represents everybody, even though it's singular, a person or a one person. It really means all people. That's why the verb is in the plural form. Me'et re'ehu, from his fellow man, his neighbor. Oisha me'et re'uta, and so this is man and woman, which is an interesting breakdown. It usually just generalizes it, but here it explicitly mentions each man shall ask his male neighbor. Oisha me'et re'uta, and each woman shall ask her female neighbor. Not neighbor, but friend. I don't think they're friends at this point. Kle kesef, for vessels of silver, ukle zahav, and vessels of gold. Waitin Yehovah itchayin am be'enei Mitzrayim. Yehovah shall cause or shall bring about the chayin am. How would you translate this into English? Basically, how do they usually translate? Chayin ba'enecha. May you find pleasure. May you find pleasure in your eyes. Basically, God will make it so that the Egyptians desire to give these vessels over. How do they translate? Let's get this translation for a second. No, it's not necessary. Get the idea. Gama ish Moshe. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. So basically, the Israelites will be pleasurable in the eyes of the Egyptians, and they will give over these vessels of silver and these vessels of gold. And I have to be honest to say I've never understood this, because it's not that the Egyptians are saying, "Wow, these Israelites are so cool. We love them so much. We just want to give them our vessels of silver and gold." It's that they're terrified of the Israelites, and then the Israelites walk up to them and say, "You mind if I borrow that fine jewelry you have?" And the Egyptians are like, "Please, just take the whole thing. Take everything. Take all my jewelry. Take all my money. Take everything. Just don't let anything. Don't do anything." Right? So I've never understood this phraseology, and I wonder if any of the commentators pick up on this. Let's see. Let's go with Robert Alter for a second. That's my favorite. So this is Exodus. Get the question, Paul? Because it says that the Egyptians will find the Israelites favorable and give them vessels of silver and gold. I've never understood this. I've studied this, seen that verse for years and years and years, but that's not what's going on here. The context of the story is the Egyptians are absolutely terrified of the Israelites. It's not that they love the Israelites and therefore decide to give gifts of silver and gold. They've just destroyed everything the Egyptians own, and they're obviously terrified of them. That's why they give up gold and silver. At any rate, let's see if anyone else picks up on this. So this is Exodus 11:3, and let's see how Robert Alter translates it. First of all, and the Lord will grant the people favor in the eyes of the Egyptians. Commentary? No commentary. So Robert Alter has nothing to say. Let's see what Rashi has to say, even though I, of course, always take Rashi with a grain of salt. Nothing. אינה אלא לשון בקשה, ובקשה ממך תזהירים על כך שלא יאמר אותו צדיק אברהם. Okay? And Moshe כה אמר השם, No, so he doesn't have anything to say about that one either. Nah. It's verse 2. No, it's the same verse. Second here. So so Rashi brings us in Genesis 15:14, which I wanted to point out anyway, which is this is a fulfillment of the promise back in the Brit Ben Abitarim. We look at that for a second. Oh, I should open it up in a new tab. I'll just grab it here. So Genesis 15. Sure. The Westminster Leningrad Codex. Whoa, what's going on? So Genesis 15. And let's go to the Hebrew. And that was 15:14. So Genesis 15:14 says, so this is the Brit Ben Abitarim. This is the covenant of the parts, they usually translate it as, where the animals are split in two, and then a fire or an oven goes through between the split parts of the animals. I won't read the whole thing. Verse 14, V'gam et agoy asher ya'avdu dan anochi. And also this nation, which they shall serve, ya'avodu dan anochi, I will judge. And afterwards, yitz'u b'rechush gadol, they will go out, they will leave, and it says b'rechush gadol, with great possessions, possessions. So this which was promised 400 odd years before is now being fulfilled when Yahweh tells Moshe to tell the Israelites that they should go ask the Egyptians for gold and silver. And the Egyptians, basically, they despoil it. We'll say afterwards, explicitly, that the Israelites were able to despoil Egypt. So not only did Yahweh decimate this country, destroy all the firstborn, leave it completely, basically razed to the ground, but then they despoiled it. They took all of its wealth, and then they got the heck out. You don't want to mess with Yahweh. Okay. So I'll go for. I think I'm going to stop after this verse. But Ish Moshe Gadol me'od be'eretz Mitzrayim be'enei abdei Faro u'be'enei ha'am. And Moshe, the man Moshe was very great, very powerful in the land of Egypt, in the eyes of Pharaoh's servants. Remember, a lot of times we said that Pharaoh, it's mentioned Pharaoh, his servants, and people. And here we have exactly the same thing. In the eyes of his servants and in the eyes of the people of Egypt. So I don't know if they thought of him as a great leader or if they were just terrified of him. But either way, he was not taken lightly anymore. And remember, the whole thing started with Moshe being taken very lightly. So much so that when Moshe says, "Let my people go," Pharaoh basically laughs and increases the burdens on the people. And I think I'll just read through in the Hebrew, maybe until the end of the chapter. V'yomer Moshe ko amar Yehovah, ki chatzot halayla ani yotzei b'toch Mitzrayim. Meit kol bechor be'eretz Mitzrayim, bechor mi bechor Pharaoh. Hayoshev al kis'o ad bechor hashifcha. Asher achar harichaim. Bechor bechor behema. הייתה צעקה גדולה בכל ארץ מצרים, אשר כמו לא נהייתה, כמוהו לא תוסיף. ולכל בני ישראל לא יחרץ למען תדעון אשר יפלה יהוה בין מצרים ובין ישראל. ירדו כל עבדיך אליי. וישתחוו לי לאמור צא אתה So, יאמר יהוה, blah blah blah, יאמר משה, כה אמר יהוה כי חצות הלילה אני יוצא בתוך מצרים. So now Moshe is obviously speaking, Umet kol bechor be'eretz Mitzrayim. I don't know who he's speaking to, bechor paro, but remember we saw before that after the plague of darkness, Pharaoh says to Moshe, let me not see your face anymore. So after the plague of darkness or of locusts? Yeah, after the plague of darkness. Lo sif od re'ot panecha, and Moshe says, I will never see your face again. So I think here Moshe is maybe speaking to Pharaoh, but not directly, because it doesn't say that Moshe went to Pharaoh or Moshe and Aaron went to Pharaoh. So maybe he's speaking to the people. Maybe he's speaking to Pharaoh indirectly. But I don't think he's speaking directly to Pharaoh. לכל בני ישראל לא יחרץ כלב לשונו למאיש של עד בהמה למען תדעון אשר יפלה יהוה בין מצרים ובין ישראל. ירדו כל עבדיך, and all of your servants will come down. עבדיך אלה. All of these servants of yours will come down. Which servants of yours? I guess the same ones that are mentioned throughout, right? So this is obviously directed towards Pharaoh. Avadecha is referring to Pharaoh's servants. Ela elai ishtachavu li. And they will bow down before me. Le'emor tse ata v'chol ha'am asher beraglecha. So they're going to come and bow down to Moshe. Remember, early on, when Moshe complains that he doesn't want to take this mission on alone or at all, really, Yehovah responds and says, Moshe, you will be like an Elohim to Pharaoh, and Aaron will be your Niviecha, will be like your prophet. So at that point, Yehovah, as I mentioned in last week's study, decides to make Moshe seem like a god before Pharaoh, right? Really, Yehovah, of course, it's all about Yehovah and recognizing his name. Pharaoh certainly does, but Moshe becomes like a god in Pharaoh's eyes as well, right? It even says, right, we saw above that this man Moshe was great in the eyes of Egypt and in all of Pharaoh's servants, and in the eyes of the people of Egypt, right? So Moshe is almost like godlike at this point, which is not a too far a stretch for the Egyptians because they believe that their Pharaoh was a god, right? They believe this idea that a human being, the deification of a human being, that the Pharaoh of Egypt was basically a god, a living god. So all of the servants who obviously before had bowed down to Pharaoh as a living god are now going to come and they're going to bow down before Moshe. Because now Moshe, Ha'ish Moshe Gadol Ma'od Be'eretz Mitzrayim, this man Moshe was very great in the land of Egypt. But in the eyes, it says explicitly in the eyes of the servants of Pharaoh, and the eyes of the people. So the servants of Pharaoh are now going to come down. So Yardu kol avadecha. So Moshe is now saying to Pharaoh, your servants who bow down before you are going to come bow down before me. They're now going to see me as a god more than they see you as a god, through the fact that Yehovah made me like an Elohim and Aaron like Niviecha, like my prophet. So Yehovah decides to elevate Moshe to almost godlike status in the eyes of these idiots who think that people can be gods. They'll bow down before me and say, get out of here, you, and all of the people who are at your feet, meaning who are with you. Afterwards I will go out. ויצא מעם פרעה בחרי אף. He went out from Pharaoh angry. Well, I guess it kind of does contradict that I will no longer see you. I will not see your face again. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it right here, but I'm just going to read on to the end of the chapter. ויאמר יהוה אל משה לא ישמע עליכם פרעה למען רבות מותי בארץ מצרים. So Pharaoh is not going to listen to Moshe. ומשה ואהרון עשו את כל המופתים האלה לפני פרעה, and this is kind of a summary sentence before we get on to some laws in chapters 12 and 13. Moshe ואהרון עשו את כל המופתים האלה לפני פרעה, and Moshe and Aaron did all of these signs, these wonders before Pharaoh. ויחזק יהוה את לב פרעה ולא שילח את בני ישראל מארצו. So speaking about the first 9 plagues, because after the 10th plague, Pharaoh does send. So it's kind of a summary sentence for the first 9 plagues. It's a kind of preview or foreshadowing, no, a preview, a prediction of the 10th plague, or a declaration of what the 10th plague will be, which is going to be different and special than all of the other plagues. As horrible as all the other plagues were, this one's going to be different, and it's going to be special, and it's going to have significance for the laws of the children of Israel, namely meaning that the firstborn of Israel, be it human or be it animal, are sanctified to God. And again, this there are a lot of themes in the Exodus story, but one of them is this idea of firstborn. One of the first things that Moshe says to Pharaoh here. See. There it is. Exodus 4:21. Yomer Yehovah el Moshe. Yehovah said to Moshe, "Belech techa lashuv mitzrayim." When you go to return to Egypt, re'eh et kol hamoftim asher samti be'adecha. Behold, all of this, the wonders, the signs which which I've placed in your hand, asitam bifnei Pharaoh, and do them before Pharaoh. V'ani achazek et libo, and I will harden his heart, v'lo yishalach et ha'am, and he will not let the people go. V'amarta el Pharaoh, and you will say to Pharaoh, Ko amar Yehovah, so says Yehovah, Beni bechori Israel. My son, my firstborn son is Israel. So Israel is God's firstborn, right? So the theme already appears very early, the idea of the firstborn. Beni bechori Israel, right? And now we see the final plague is going to be the destruction of the firstborn and the claiming of the firstborn of Israel to God sanctified. And that's the whole reason that we have the Pidyon Ben, that the children, that male firstborn children, as I was to my father, have to be redeemed at 30 days. Even though now it's ceremonial. My father still did a Pidyon Ben for me when I was 30 days old. And the firstborn of all the animals, of all the kosher animals to be brought as sacrifices. The non-kosher animals like the hamor, donkey, are to be exchanged for kosher animal, and that kosher animal is to be brought as a sacrifice. And then we have later on, as we'll see in the book of is it Exodus? It's later on in the book of Exodus, but I might be wrong about that. That the Levites, the Levites are exchanged for the firstborn. So basically, all of the firstborn were supposed to be the priests to Yehovah, but there's an exchange made. The Levites are brought on to be the priests of Yehovah, and the firstborn are released from being sanctified to Yehovah, which is what the priests are, and the Levites in that sense. And instead, the sons of Aaron are sanctified to Yehovah as priests. And because of that, you have to have this redemption ceremony, this Pidyon Ben, where the firstborn is redeemed from being sanctified to Yehovah. Okay, we'll get to all of that later. So we have to go back to where we were. Exodus 11, and I'm going to finish off in just a second. Verse 9, Yomer Yehovah el Moshe, lo yishma el... Oh, I read that already. Right, and that's our summary sentence here. Et kol hamoftim ha'ele lifnei Paro v'yachazek Yehovah et lev Paro v'lo shilach et bnei Israel me'artzo. And then we get to Exodus 12. Exodus 12 is very, very important. It's all kinds of laws relating to the Passover sacrifice, including Exodus 12:48, which is unfortunately misinterpreted by certain Karaites to mean a blanket statement that a ger is to be like an ezrach once he brings a Passover sacrifice. That is an incorrect statement. But what the verse really means is that the ger and the ezrach have the same instructions with regard to the Passover sacrifice once the ger is circumcised. I won't get into that now. But Exodus 12 speaks about basically the laws of the first Passover. And Exodus 13 speaks about the laws of the dedication of firstborn and subsequent Passovers. Okay. שבעת ימים תאכל מצות וביום השביעי חג ליהוה מצות יאכל את שבעת ימים ולא יראה. Okay. We're going to end it here. I would love to go on, but we've been going on for a long time. So if nobody has any comments or statements, then we shall end it. If you have a comment, then please type it in right now. And if not, I'm going to say Shabbat Shalom to everybody, or Shavua Tov, depending on where you are. Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov. This has been the World Alliance of Qara'im study. And Bizrat Hashem, no, Bizrat Yehovah, we shall see you next week. Shabbat Shalom. And we'll go out with a little bit of